Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Wednesday, July 16th. Yes, I'm 2 minutes late. I'm sorry, but we're live. And folks, I didn't even know, I genuinely forgot that we had PPI today. I legit forgot. We had CPI yesterday. I was like, all right, CPI is fine. We're done. We have PPI today. And the reason the pre-markets are booming right now is because PPI was really good. Producer price index, 2.3% year over year versus 2.6 expected. That's a massive beat, 0.3% down. And then core, 2.6 versus 2.8%. I mean, I legit forgot that we had producer price index coming out today. Again, CPI is consumer price index, how much consumers are paying for goods and services. Producer price index is how much the producers are paying, how much, the restaurant is paying for the food versus how much the consumers are paying for the food at the restaurant. So from that perspective, if PPI is coming down as aggressively as it is, it's not always going to be directly proportional to CPI, but it's definitely a hint to the market that, hey, inflation is starting to come down. The S&P 500 right there, up right now in the pre-market, 623.77. We did hit 627 yesterday, which was an all-time high. We're not there yet, but you got green candles. AMD, green. NVDA, breaking through 171. Palantir, trying to get to 150 again. Tessie from 308 to 312. Robinhood, back above 100. Google, 183. SoFi, above 21. I mean, I did not remember we had really important PPI data today, but we did have it, and it was way better than expected. So this is what's framing the market right now. We got a lot of headlines to get into, a lot of stuff around Jerome Powell, a lot of stuff around trade deals. We got some more NVIDIA updates, tons of different things to talk about. But in general, this is really good data. Really, really good data. To go a little bit more deeper into it, so PPI 2.3% year over year, 2.6% was expected. Month over month, we came in at 0% increase. The market thought we would do 0.3%. Core, 2.6 versus 2.8. Month over month, we came in at 0% on core. The market thought we would do 0.3%. I mean, this is good, bro. This is really, really freaking good. Vince's portfolio is hitting all-time highs. We are blessed. We are absolutely blessed. And this CPI data, or this PPI data, along with the CPI data yesterday, which the CPI was a little hotter than expected. So I think some people thought, okay, PPI was going to be bad. But part of the reason why CPI was hot was because, again, based on what we looked at yesterday, shelter, which was the primary reason for the month over month and the year over year increase. PPI has a lot of different components towards it outside of just shelter, and it's showing us that inflation is coming down. So there you go. I mean, that's why the pre-markets are having some fun. I mean, obviously, yesterday was a fun day. Things kind of ended flat. Now, over the past couple of days, it's been pump for the first 15 to 20 minutes of the day and then dump, but the dump ends up being just a flattish to red day, maybe slightly red day. Maybe that repeats itself. But based on this PPI data, it seems like the market is excited. And that's why we're seeing some of this momentum. We got a lot of earnings to discuss as well. Asml and the big banks. Real quick, the Ethereum treasuries are booming as well. SBET 15% in the pre-markets. If you're in SharpLink Gaming, again, I'm in none of the Ethereum treasuries, but if you're in them, and if you got in, a lot earlier before they made some of their runs. Again, SBET did go to 120 at one point, came all the way back down to 9. If you got in around 9 to 15, you're probably doing very well right now. But this one's up 15%, which is great. BTBT, which had some dilution a couple of days ago, that one's up 5%. And then BMNR, which if you're on the market close yesterday, BMNR is up 17% because Mr. Peter Thiel bought 5 million shares. 9% of BMNR is owned by Peter Thiel. I am still confused what price he bought it at. I've seen conflicting reports saying he bought it at 100. Other reports are saying that he bought it at 450 and he got in at the same price that Founders Fund, which is his VC fund, got in, which makes a lot more sense than him buying at $100 because Peter Thiel doesn't tend to buy stocks when they run that high. So more likely than not, he bought it at around that 450 range. But Peter Thiel's personal money, not just Founders Fund, is in this with a 9% stake. Yeah, 450. I see a lot of you guys saying 450. I saw some 450s as well. That's probably what the answer is. But regardless if it was 450 or 50, the point is his personal funds are in an Ethereum treasury, likely because he believes in Ethereum. One thing I found out over the past 24 hours as well is Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, he was a Thiel fellow. He was a Thiel Fellow. And a Thiel Fellow is someone who gets $100,000 to not go to college to be able to build their own product or service or company. So the guy who made Ethereum knows Peter Thiel very well, which kind of makes sense for why Peter Thiel is betting big on Ethereum. So we'll talk more about the Ethereum treasuries, but overall, not doing too bad from that perspective. Bitcoin right here at 118, and Ethereum, are we at 3,100 yet? Ethereum is at 3,170. Wow. All right. So that's also helping the Ethereum treasuries. Yesterday, it was at 2,970. So that's a nice little move over the past 24 hours on Ethereum. All right, let's get into earnings. ASML, 753. That's down 8%. 753, that's down 8%. Honestly, I have not looked too deeply into Ethereum earnings, or not Ethereum earnings, ASML earnings. I saw the headline numbers, though, and the headline numbers are pretty good. Don't know why the street's that upset about it. Here are the headlines on ASML. Beat by 12% on EPS, 685 versus 611. EPS is up 57% year over year. Revenue is up 30% year over year, 8.96 billion versus 8.81. They beat by 1% on revenues. Guidance was bad. Okay, I guess that's the inevitable reason why this one's taking as big of a hit as it is. ASML right here. So CEO said they expect growth in 2026, but they can't confirm it yet due to increasing uncertainty driven by macroeconomic and geopolitical developments, meaning they're a bit more cautious than what they said in Q1. Yeah, looking at 2026, we see that our AI customers' fundamentals remain strong. At the same time, we continue to see increasing uncertainty driven by macroeconomic and geopolitical developments. Therefore, we still prepare for growth in 2026. We cannot confirm it at this stage. Now, this one's a little weird, right? Because you would imagine, although there's not a direct proportional link between NVIDIA and ASML, if NVIDIA is going to continue to have really strong guidance going into 2026, that ASML's demand should be there as well. Granted, Jose talked about yesterday how even the China boost on NVIDIA doesn't necessarily create a boost for ASML. So it's not like they're exactly going to be able to match their revenue targets towards increased GPU demand, simply because they're just in a different sector of the stack. But I don't think that means it deserves to be down 9% here. That kind of feels like a little bit of an overreaction. Again, I don't know ASML as deeply as some of these other semiconductor names, but I don't think it's bearish for the broader semiconductor industry. If it was, we would see NVIDIA's down, we would see AMD's down, we would see a lot of the semis taking a beating if ASML was the deciding factor. SMCI's up. I mean, pretty much all the semis are doing okay outside of ASML. And they could also just be sandbagging because they don't want to have high expectations going into 2026, when in reality, the earnings wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, they also are European, so they do have to wait for tariffs and clarity on tariffs. We'll talk more about updates, I would say, today on tariffs. But that could be another thing that could be factoring into their guidance. Okay, we got earnings, folks, from the banks. Let's get into these bank earnings. There are some pretty good ones. Some of them are okay, but not great. Some of them are really great. So let's start off with Goldman Sachs, Stanley. Here are the results we have for those.
Sachs and Morgan Stanley just releasing quarterly results. I know Goldman Sachs is trading higher. Let's get over to Leslie Picker. She's looking through the numbers on that. Hey, Leslie.
Hey, Becky. Yeah, Goldman Sachs reporting top and bottom line beats driven by huge gains in the business that advises on acquisitions as well as equity trading. The firm's global banking and markets division, which houses those two businesses, generated $10 billion in revenue, up 24% year over year. Advisory, which largely comprises M&A banking, raked in more than $1 billion and was up 71% year over year. Equity underwriting was up slightly, while debt underwriting was slightly down. Goldman said its investment banking fees backlog is higher compared with the first quarter and then the end of 2024 as well. Within trading, equities surged 36% year over year to $4.3 billion, a record for that group. Fixed income, currencies, and commodities gained 9% to $3.5 billion in revenue during the quarter. Asset and wealth management, a smaller but key growth area for the firm, they did see revenue decline about 3% year over year to $3.8 billion. The division was dragged down by some debt investments on the balance sheet. CEO David Solomon saying in the release, quote, "At this time, the economy and markets are generally responding positively to the evolving policy environment. But as developments rarely unfold in a straight line, we've remained very focused on risk management." Return on equity of 12.8% was nearly 2 percentage points higher than a year ago, although lower than Q1. Turning to Morgan Stanley, that firm also beating on the top and bottom lines in all three divisions, surpassing the street's expectations. Trading, a bright spot here with equities revenue jumping 23%, fixed income up 9% during the quarter. Total investment banking fees, though, those were lower for Morgan Stanley by nearly 5%. Advisory, which manages M&A, declined 14%. Equity capital markets, though, the unit that manages IPOs and follow-on offerings, that gained 42% to $500 million. Debt capital markets revenue slumped by 21% during the quarter. Morgan Stanley's wealth management division brought in $59 billion in net new assets and $43 billion in fee-based assets during the quarter. Net revenues were up 14% to $7.8 billion for that division, and investment management revenue was up about 12%. Expenses, though, guys, coming in higher here than the street expected. Compensation expense was $7.2 billion, above analyst estimates, while non-comp expense was also slightly higher than expectations. Still, return on tangible common equity was 18.2% in the quarter.
So these banks today, Goldman and Morgan Stanley, didn't put up the types of earnings that JP Morgan and Citibank put up last night, but they're still not bad. Goldman Sachs right here up in the pre-markets, and Morgan Stanley slightly down. BlackRock also kind of had the same issue. Their operating expenses were a bit higher than what the street expected, even though the results were great. BlackRock right here up 1%. It was down 5% yesterday, so a little bit of recovery right here in the pre-markets. But overall, these are not concerning earnings in the context of banks. Now, Bank of America also put up some earnings, and these were a bit worse than JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, but they still weren't horrible. So Bank of America right here, 89 versus 86 cents. They beat by 3% on EPS. EPS is up 7% year over year. Revenue is up 4% year over year. Again, banks don't grow like crazy, but they do have some growth right here, and they missed by 1% on revenues for Bank of America. That stock is also not red in the pre-markets. It's slightly flat. So I don't know. I mean, the banks are doing their thing, dude. The banks, you can point to little minute things in the banks that like make the quarter not as amazing as it needs to be. Just like on Amazon last quarter, they missed on AWS. You wouldn't say it's a bad quarter, but they missed slightly on AWS. You're like, all right, you can see how the stock reacts to the downside. But at the end of the day, Amazon put up $19-20 billion of AWS revenue, which is almost 18% year over year growth. Like, no one's going to say that's bad growth, even if it's not as amazing as what the street wanted. And I think that's what we're getting on some of these banks. Other banks like Citigroup absolutely just crushed it yesterday, and that's why they're getting rewarded. PNC also had earnings, 8% beat on EPS. EPS is up 14% year over year. Revenues up 5% year over year. They beat by 1%, $5.6 billion versus $5.60 billion on revenue, which is not too bad. PNC, that stock is up 1.3. So we had that. And then did we have anything else? We had PNC, we had Goldman Sachs, we had Bank of America, Morgan Stanley. The last one we had today was J&J. We do have some earnings after the bell. J&J beat by 3% on EPS, 277 versus 268, and 23.74 versus 22.8, beat by 4% on revenue. J&J, that stock is up about 2% in the pre-markets. These are not bad earnings. These are not bad earnings, and that's why I think we are getting some of this momentum. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point by Quantes. Q2 is usually not the strongest quarter either. Q3 and Q4, particularly Q4, tend to be really strong quarters just because you have a lot more demand because of the holiday season in every single sector. For software companies, you have quotas to finish up your budgets, you're closing your final deals, and people just have to spend money during that time. And that's why Q3 and Q4 tend to be way better than Q2. Q2 is kind of just like stuck in the middle of the year. So the fact that these companies already are putting up some decent earnings in Q2, I think is very nice. And that's why we're getting some momentum. Why are you guys saying pew pew? Did Trump tweet pew pew or something? Did I say pew pew? Or is that a ticker? PEW? Grab a gun. Oh, this is the freaking Trump SPAC. Did it go live today? Is it live today? Yeah, it went live. Okay, so this is freaking his son, and oh, I forgot who he's collaborating with, but his son and someone else. It's an online gun store. Grab a Gun Digital. It's an online gun store. Pew pew. Oh, well, it's Pew, but we can understand why. Dude, they actually picked Pew as the ticker symbol? Goodness gracious, bro. Yeah, pew, pew, pew. It's like the sound kids make when they're shooting a gun, when they're like pretending to shoot a gun. All right. Well, watch out for this one today, folks. Up 29% in the pre-markets. It looked like the SPAC merger is completed. And Grab a Gun Digital. That is what we're going to see go live today. So the website is grabagun.com. Grabagun.com. And that's where you can buy, you can legit buy guns. I'm looking at it right now. All right, so there you go. That's halted. Yep, just got halted. There you go. Just got halted. 22.16 up 30%. I mean, this is the environment to bring a SPAC like this into the freaking ecosystem, right? I mean, you've got market sentiments that's there to reward some of these names. All right, so we'll keep an eye on Grab a Gun Digital and see how that one plays out. Palantir right here, 149 in the pre-markets. NVIDIA, 171. Let's talk about Jay Powell and the Fed. So we got through the bank earnings today. Let's talk about Jay Powell and the Fed. So last night, if you were on X, a rumor started swirling. And that rumor was started by the director of Fannie and Freddie, who, if you remember on Friday, also started a rumor. Remember, he came out with something 5 minutes before the market closed, and he was like, oh, I'm hearing reports that Jerome Powell will resign by August. Here's what he tweeted last night. Ploot. Here's what he tweeted last night. And he had a bunch of senators like confirm what he said, which is why it was really weird. He said last night at 8:30 p.m., I heard from a very credible bipartisan source today that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. This maps with both reports and also the talk in D.C. And then you had a bunch of these other senators or representatives from the House that are like super MAGA also say, I'm hearing the same thing. And these are like official accounts. Like you kind of got to take them seriously when they say this type of stuff, because it's like, you know, like what do they know that we don't know? But then this guy, Ploot, he quote tweets my tweet today, 21 minutes ago, my tweet about producer price index. And he says, Jerome Powell must resign. Now, why is he saying Jerome Powell has to resign if he already knows through very credible sources that Jerome Powell is very close to seriously considering to resign? I mean, it feels like this guy's trying to manifest a resignation by Jay Powell. And at this point, dude, I don't even want Jay Powell to give it to them. Like, I don't want Jay Powell to feel the pressure, because I just feel like it would be not in the best interest of the independence of the central bank for the director of Fannie and Freddie to be able to manifest the anger and pain in the overall political climate that would get the Fed chair to resign. Like, that just feels weird. It feels very weird. So, and the fact that he's quote tweeting me and saying Jerome Powell must resign, it kind of seems like he wants him to resign, which is very different from what he said last night, which is that he thinks he's basically getting ready to resign. Like, I mean, this is not real. Like, what sources out there? But dude, I think the Wall Street Journal, I think freaking the New York Times, I think a lot of these websites from a journalistic perspective that cover the Fed day in and day out, I think they would hear from some sources if Jay Powell was actually considering to resign over this guy who desperately wants him to resign, just asserting that he's hearing rumors that he's going to resign. So I don't know. This is weird, bro. This is very weird. And so that is one of the things that happened yesterday. He was on Fox yesterday talking about it. So let's get a clip of this as well. Now, one of the reasons he thinks he's going to resign as well is because Jay Powell did ask for about $2.5 billion to renovate the Fed. And so maybe part of the reason he thinks he's going to resign is because there's some like impropriety in terms of how Jay Powell has created the budget for the Fed, which I don't think would be a reason for him to resign. But here's what he had to say yesterday.
Are you calling for an audit to happen on the renovations?
There needs to be an audit on the renovations at the Federal Reserve. I think people need to in a bipartisan fashion, call for an audit. We have $2.5 billion. Who spends $2.5 billion on a renovation? I mean, I couldn't even think about how to do that. I mean, you know how many movie theaters you'd have to put in it, and all kinds of spas and pools and hot tubs and everything? I mean, you'd have to really come up with some crazy stuff to spend $2.5 billion. So it smells to high heaven, and I think Jerome Powell's going to resign. And if he doesn't, I think there's enough there for cause to terminate him.
He's saying, I think Jerome Powell will resign because he spent way too much money on renovating the Fed. And if he doesn't willingly resign, which again, the rumors on him considering to resign, I think were started by this guy in the first place. I don't think there's any real rumors. He's saying there is probable cause for Trump to fire Jay Powell because he spent $2 billion on a redesign of the Federal Reserve. So Trump, he says, has the ability to say this guy was basically being fraudulent with the budget and deserves to be fired.
Well, even if you take his mandate that it's to reduce inflation or keep inflation at 2%, it's at 2%. I mean, in some cases, it might be lower. If you look at the run rate for the last 3 months, it's like 1.6%. So it's complete nonsense what Jay Powell is doing. He was silent during all of the so-called policy decisions that he always remains silent on, but somehow he invents and hallucinates something with tariffs. I mean, he really is hallucinating with regard to tariffs. Nobody, it's like going into a room and you see a ghost. He says there's a ghost. Nobody sees the ghost except for Jerome Powell.
Okay. So this is what's going on with Jay Powell and the Fed. Now, there's a couple pieces of nuance here. Number one, I don't know why Jay Powell's spending $2.5 billion at the Fed. I also think that's kind of weird. I'm just like, to be honest, I'm like, I don't know why they need $2.5 billion to renovate the Federal Reserve building. Now, maybe I am very ignorant to how that building works, but I do think that's a little bit of money to spend on the Federal Reserve building. But that does not mean that he deserves to be fired. I don't think he's stealing some of the money to be able to build out the Federal Reserve building for his own personal gain to then, do something improper with it. So I don't think that's a probable reason for cause. And number two, and here's the broader question that I want to ask right here in the chat. Let's say Jay Powell did get fired or he resigned, but he resigned from a political reason, right? Like there was pressure for him to resign. It's not like he's actually quitting, but he's quitting because there's too much pressure. Would it hurt the market if the CB, the central bank's independence, was compromised? Would it hurt the market? That is the question. Would it hurt the market if the central bank independence was compromised? Because in some respects, like I think the bear and the bull cases, the bear case is yes, it would hurt the market because the entire world would be like, holy crap, like the fact that Trump can just appoint whoever the hell he wants to be the Fed and he can come up with this plot for the director of Fannie and Freddie to be able to instill rumors in the marketplace and then get Jay Powell to feel all this pressure and manipulate the media. Like that's not good. That's very dictatorial. It doesn't feel like democracy. That's weird. And we can't really trust the Fed or the independence of the Fed, which means the independence of monetary and fiscal policy if the president is pressuring the Fed chair to leave. That's one bear case. The bull case is rates are coming down. Rates are coming down and the market, maybe for a couple of days, maybe even for a couple hours, will be like, okay, kind of sucks. Independence of the Fed is bad. But are we really selling NVIDIA? Are we really selling Bitcoin if we know rates are coming down? Like, are we really going to be bearish if we know that Besant or Kevin Warsh or Kevin Hassett are going to be in charge of the Fed and mortgages are going to become more affordable? Auto loans are going to become more affordable. Like, are we really going to be bearish? I don't know. So yes, I think it would hurt the market, but I really do wonder how long it would hurt the market for, because I'm not selling my stocks if we replace Jay Powell with someone else. I would be pretty annoyed as just like an American citizen that, it got to the point where we had to literally fire the Fed chair. I think it sets a horrible precedent, but I wouldn't sell. So it's one of those things that is very kind of weird to see how it would play out, but I think we do have somewhat of an understanding of how the market would think about it. Mike says we'd probably go back to runaway inflation with how hard Trump wants to cut rates. So that's the question, right? Like if we do bring rates down, let's say 200 basis points over the next year and a half, along with some of the tariffs that we are inevitably going to be implementing, even if it's not 30 to 45%, would inflation tick up to be as dramatic as it was back in June of 2022? I don't think inflation would get back to 10%. I do think inflation would probably tick up a little bit. But let's say inflation is flat or barely up. I mean, Trump would be put in the economic history books for a very long time if he is able to replace Jay Powell, put in another Fed chair, that Fed chair get lower rates, Trump institutes tariffs, and somehow we don't have 2021, 2022 level of inflation. Now, again, that's a very fine line to walk because inflation is a very hard problem to contain. But if we don't have massive inflation and we do have a booming economy with tariffs, deregulation, and low interest rates, I mean, that would be one of the greatest economies of all time. Question is if that's possible. And I think Trump obviously thinks it's possible. We don't know if it's possible, but that is one of the scenarios that, inevitably we are going to see either play out or we're going to see Jay Powell eventually cut. The probabilities on a September cut right here, it was 59% yesterday. Dude, this thing keeps dropping. It's at 54. This is, again, talk about a black swan. If we don't get our rate cuts in September, this market is priced for at least 2 rate cuts. If you don't get that damn rate cut, it's going to be a little scary. Sachin says $140 trillion in the bond market cares more about rates than legal and constitutional drama that follows after Jay Powell firing. His firing means immediate rate cuts, and despite volatility, borrowing costs go down. Yeah, that right there, what Sachin is saying on the screen, is the reason for why markets would go crazy to the upside. Because after a few hours of worrying about the legal and constitutional drama, you remember that, wait a second, Bank of America has $300 billion of paper losses on their balance sheet because they issued loans at 2 to 3%. Loans are at 4.5% now. As soon as those rates come down, when you mark to market the value of the loans on their balance sheet versus the tangible book value, you start to get a higher tangible book value. And that's just one example for the banks that have tons and tons of losses because rates that are high. All these small caps, the cost of borrowing capital goes down. You have, I mean, the big tech companies are kind of insulated against rate cuts, but it definitely doesn't hurt for rate cuts to be down, for the capital spending environment to be better, just overall demand for businesses. Consumers will be able to buy a car more likely. They'll be able to actually get a loan from the bank when it comes to buying a house on a 30-year, if that 30-year gets anywhere near 4.5% to 5%. I mean, there's so many opportunities that open up when we get rate cuts. The question is just, do we get them? Not to mention Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's based on liquidity. Rate cuts means more liquidity. And Bitcoin would be great for Robinhood, would be great for Coinbase, great for MicroStrategy. I mean, there could be a lot of impacts if we end up getting those rate cuts. The question is, what is the corresponding impact on inflation? And that's what we're going to have to see in terms of how it plays out. American Jedi 210, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. American Jedi 210 for becoming a channel member. Your name, American Jedi, reminds me of Pew, which is now up 38% because Grab a Gun Digital is one of the most American companies I could imagine going public. But there you go. Pew is up 40%. TextBat says it's his birthday. Happy birthday to you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for joining me on your birthday. Happy birthday to TextBat being a part of the show. Okay, real quick, let's go through a couple more headlines, and then we'll get into some NVIDIA stuff, and then we got the market open in about 15 minutes. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here. PPI today came in great, 2.3% year-over-year versus 2.6%, 0% on the monthly versus 0.3% core, 2.6 versus 2.8. On the monthly, core came in at 0 versus 0.3%. So really good numbers on PPI and continuing to show that inflation is indeed coming down. Palantir, we got an upgrade on Palantir. Mizuho says 116 to 135. We hit all-time highs on Palantir yesterday. Here's what they said. Palantir's recent execution and momentum is stunning, including material upward revisions across its commercial and government segments that we very much underestimated. We also believe Palantir has a legitimate chance to accelerate revenue growth for a 5th consecutive quarter when reporting 2Q results in early August. That said, we are equally stunned by the multiple that Palantir has attained, which places its valuation dramatically above anything else in software. While we continue to worry that the shares could suddenly be subject to material multiple reversion at some point over the next few quarters, Palantir's uniqueness demands a deal of credit, aka Palantir is a unicorn. And looking forward, Palantir appears very well positioned to benefit from long-term trends in AI, government digital transformation, and industrial modernization. While we see many compelling names to own in software at these levels, we upgrade Palantir from neutral from underperform and raise our price target to 135 from 116. Guys, we somehow got the street. We somehow got the street to say at $350 billion, Palantir is a buy. I mean, we somehow got the street to say this. And if this doesn't scream unicorn, I don't know what screams unicorn. But the street's saying, yeah, you know, $320 billion, doing about $4 billion in revenue, that's a buy. I mean, you would think the street wouldn't say that because of how the street acts, but even they are enamored with Palantir. And again, we talked about it a lot yesterday as it hit 150. Quantitatively, you can't really make sense of the valuation, but there's a lot of qualitative parts of the story, which is getting people to want to get exposure. And that necessity to get exposure is what makes Palantir so unique right here. Grab a Gun Digital, pew, up 42%. I am not chasing this. If anyone is chasing this, I hope you make a lot of money today. We'll cover the story today. I'm the one on the market close yesterday. I think I was one of the first people like online who broke the Peter Thiel news. We broke it at like 5:20, and for 2 minutes, BM&R didn't move. I guess the news just didn't hit the business wires or the terminal, and for 2 minutes it was stuck at 39.50. And a bunch of you degens in the chat started buying BM&R when you saw Peter Thiel was taking a position. I probably should have bought some at that time as well, but I was too busy covering the story. And then this thing just exploded 17%. So I would imagine some of you guys in the chat are going to chase this thing. I will not be chasing it, but we'll cover it today. I mean, it looks like it wants to explode. Either it's going to get jumped as soon as the market opens, or people are going to absolutely bid up Grab a Gun Digital. And we're going to see. We're going to see how this one plays out. The Thiel news that Peter Thiel took a 9.1% stake in BM&R. A 9.1% stake in BM&R, which is his own money, not just founder fund money, but his own money. So that's what we got on that one yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on Grab a Gun and keep going from there. Okay, now Jensen said a bunch of different things yesterday. He was on, he was in China, and he gave a bunch of different quotes about everything going on inside of China. So we'll pull up those quotes. We also have some video of that we'll watch in a second, but I will pull that up in a second. By the way, this employee from XAI said, we are seeing unprecedented usage on Grok companies. They are available for free on the Grok app, not Grok companies, Grok companions. So remember that Grok companion that Elon put out yesterday or 2 days ago with the figure that you can see right here? Apparently, it is leading Grok to be number 3 on the App Store because people want to download it. People that don't even know what Grok is, they want to download it because they've heard of this companion mode. And yeah, that's creating some momentum for Grok as a company. Elon is now releasing a male version of the Grok companion. He asked yesterday, what should we name the male version? Grok right here is the #1 app in South Korea, Belgium, Cyprus, Croatia, Canada, Hong Kong, and Japan. Japan makes sense given what the Grok female companion looks like, and now a male companion will be coming out pretty soon. So he found a way to get Grok to grow. I mean, you needed something to get it above ChatGPT in a bunch of the other countries, and Elon figured it out. Elon found a way, and yeah, now it is growing. Okay, Jensen. What did Jensen say in China? Again, we'll watch the video of it later, but he had a bunch of different quotes. So let's pull up some of these quotes right here and see what he said. All right. So #1, he said, after yesterday's announcement, I haven't had a chance to meet any customers yet. It will still take us time to ramp up our supply chain. I'm going to work hard to accelerate the recovery in the coming months. He said, I've read that NVIDIA H20 was part of the rare earth negotiations, but I have no privileged information about US-China negotiations. And then he said, Huawei is a very great technology company. I really want to buy one of their cars. The openness of DeepSeek made it possible for every country and every industry to engage with AI. So you got Jensen giving a bunch of quotes to everyone in China about the benefits of what they've been able to do with working with the United States and reopening up essentially the industry when it comes to AI and selling these H20 chips. And as a result, the market likes it. And NVIDIA now is a $4.2 trillion market cap. It is $1 trillion higher than Apple. Here is a clip of Jensen speaking yesterday in Beijing.
Yeah. So H20 was released from its ban. H20 has some very, of course, it is not the highest performance of NVIDIA's products today, but the memory bandwidth is still extremely good. It is still extremely good. So for inference and reasoning model inference, H20 is still going to be excellent. For large language models and vision language action models, there are many types of new models. NVIDIA's architecture is going to be excellent. We introduced a new product called RTX Pro. And RTX Pro is designed for a new type of application. And this new application is called a digital twin. It is a virtual world, a digital robot. And the reason why digital robot is necessary is in order to teach a physical robot how to be a good robot and perform tasks, you do it in the digital world first. RTX Pro was designed for running a new application called Omniverse, NVIDIA Omniverse, which is very important for digital factories, smart factories, robots, and so on and so forth. And so the RTX Pro product is very unique. It's the first of its kind in the world. And I think that here in China, because there's so much robotics innovation going on and so much smart factory work being done here, and the supply chain is so vast, RTX Pro is perfect. And so I'm very excited about that.
So bullish, dude. This is so bullish. I mean, guys, we're getting $17 billion of revenue to come back to NVIDIA. And the fact that it's coming back as quickly as it is, it might not all show up in the next quarter, but it's ramping up. So the street analysts know that their estimates can go higher, is very, very exciting. And so the street's taking NVIDIA even higher and continuing to give it that premium. ARK bought about 100,000 shares of Tesla yesterday. So Kathy Wood bought some Tesla, 45,000 shares in the ARKK fund, and then 70,000 shares in ARKW. Tesla got to 308 yesterday because one of the directors of the NHTSA that Trump is nominating is someone who is a bit more hostile towards Elon in the context of back in 2018 when he was part of Trump 1.0. He did say some things that were, I guess, questioning how Elon was rolling out auto safety inside of FSD within the Model 3. Now, it's been a few years. I don't know if that guy is continuing to be as hostile as he was back then to Tesla and sort of Tesla's approach and Elon's approach to autonomy. But the street took Tesla down a little bit towards the end of the day because their argument was, wait a second. By the way, Grab a Gun was up 40%. Now it's up 30%. So had a little bit of a decline right there. Their argument is, wait a second, if this guy is going to make it a little tough for Tesla to do what he needs to do, AKA get self-driving fully regulated throughout the United States, then that could be a delay on robotaxis expanding. I don't know how big of a deal that is. Jonathan Morrison is his name. But that was like a perceptual reason why the street was upset. Which again, I don't think is the biggest deal in the world. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a reason why you would sell Tesla here. The overall AI innovation along with their progress in robotaxi. And Elon said they're expanding to multiple cities pretty soon by the end of the year, hopefully Phoenix and the Bay Area. That is what I think the street cares about more than a regulatory issue. But yeah, that is something to care about for the long term if this guy ends up being a bit too aggressive when it comes to Tesla. Tesla right here, 313. It basically recovered everything it lost yesterday. So if the street cared yesterday, maybe they don't care today. And Tesla continues to move forward. We have earnings on Tesla July 23rd. AMD right here, 155. SoFi right here, 2102. Google, 183. S&P 500, 623. Now let's look at some macro data. I did not buy my Tesla yet. I'm planning to buy Tesla, about 100 shares going into earnings. So when I do buy, I'll let you guys know. But probably the week of earnings, I'll be making that buy. All right, so here's a chart yesterday that I saw that I think was one of the most bullish charts I've seen. Some people are calling it toppy, but I would say it's a bit more nuanced than just toppiness. I think it's a lot more around how the market ended up turning out this year. This is a Bank of America survey of 175 fund managers controlling about $450 billion in assets. Folks, they have the lowest cash allocation in their portfolios in the past 20 years. It's at 3.9%. Now, in October 2022, it was at almost 7%, which was one of the highest allocations they had in 20 years, and that marked the bottom. Because if you're that high in cash, probably it's because everyone is so bearish that it's time to start deploying capital, and October 2022 was the bottom of the 2021-2022 bear market. Now we're at 3.9%, and the obvious answer when people see this is, okay, it's time to sell. Because if everyone's deploying their cash, there's no more cash left to be deployed into the markets. I would say the two nuances that are, number one, there's 7.1 trillion on the sidelines. That does not have to do with the AUM that these fund managers hold. These fund managers collectively hold 450 billion, which is a small percentage of the 7 trillion in money market funds that are on the sidelines. We'll get more money market fund data tomorrow. So there's still plenty of money on the sidelines. Number two, again, the reason these fund managers have to buy NVIDIA at 170 is because if NVIDIA gets anywhere near 185, 190 towards the end of the year, and they didn't buy at 85, they didn't buy at 95, they didn't buy at 100, they didn't buy at 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, and they had ample amounts of time to be buying it realistically from 100 to 130. You had almost 5 months. And you don't deploy at 170, and then NVIDIA gets to 190 because you're stuck in a money market fund or Verizon for the dividend. I mean, like your clients are going to take their money out of your fund. It's just that simple. So I think the nuance of this chart here is not that people are so overly greedy and bullish that they just can't get their hands on enough stocks. I think it's so many of these fund managers, this is not a retail chart, this is a fund manager chart, simply missed the right time to deploy, which was April and May. And now they have to buy at these high levels, which is great for us as retail, but it's also great for the market because it creates a really strong bid for some of these stocks that are trading aggressively towards the upside from their April lows, but they still have new capital coming in because those fund managers have to deploy. Like if they're buying Robinhood at 100 because they missed it, because they think Robinhood's going to 120. I mean, 100 to 120 is still a great return. But if you need to pile into Robinhood at 100, it means that there's support for Robinhood at that $100 level, which is exciting, which is exciting. So, I don't know, dude. I don't feel like I don't think it's that toppy. And again, earnings growth that we're seeing so far in Q2, it's only been a couple days, is showing me that it's not as toppy as people think. It would be more toppy if like the multiples were just unbelievably egregious. Like again, I think if this was 2021, again, just to put in context, like to actually use some data from 2021, Robinhood was $85 in 2021. Robinhood is $15 higher than what it was in 2021. It's at 100 right now, and it has 5x their revenues, and it's only $15 higher. That shows you how bubblish 2021 actually was. I don't think we're seeing that across the most important companies. Now, there's some outliers that are very frothy, yes, but across the most important companies, like in NVIDIA, which is reasonably priced still at 170, you got fund managers that are buying it because they are realizing this is one of the blue chips in the market. By the way, NVIDIA got an upgrade yesterday from Bank of America, 220 from 180. So you are seeing a lot more price targets get increased on NVIDIA. This is what Elon tweeted again. What should we name our male Grok companion? So we do have the male version of Grok coming out. And then Dan Ives today said tech stocks will have a very strong second half of the year, kicking off with a robust Q2 tech earnings season on the doorstep, with the AI revolution tailwinds now accelerating across semi, software, consumer. NVIDIA, Meta, Microsoft, Palantir, and Tesla are our top 5 tech names going into 2Q earnings. So that's what we got from Mr. Dan Ives. All right, folks, we got about a minute. We got about a minute until this market opens. Joby is going kind of crazy right here, pre-markets. Wow, Joby's up almost 7%. I don't know if there's a headline right there on Joby. It did have that increasing of the doubling of the manufacturing capacity yesterday, which gave it a bit of a pump. It looks like that's following. Archer was following it yesterday as well. Archer is also up about 1%. Got CoreWeave that's green. All the semis are green. Not seeing that many names that are red. AMD is very barely red. Amazon barely red. Reddit barely red. But a lot of these names are green. Now, we're going to see if this market continues to be a market that pumps for the first 15 minutes and then tanks, or if this market can sustain some of its momentum going into the end of the day. Yeah, the Ethereum treasuries, Trade Desk got into the S&P 500. That's why that's pumping. Open Door. I mean, a lot of these names have been having some momentum, so we will cover them as we get into the open and see how they perform today. All right, folks, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is a Wednesday. PPI came in way better than expected. July 16th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 opens up at 623. 623.71. That's up about 0.25% on the S&P 500. We are green to begin the S&P 500. Tesla opens up at 313. Palantir 149.40 on Palantir. That's up about 0.5%. Tesla 313. That's up 1%. Robinhood 99.89. They're pinning it basically at 99 to 100 almost every day for the past week now. There you go. Back to 100 on Robinhood. S&P 500 623. AMD 155. That's slightly down. SoFi 2118. That's up 1%. Google 183. That's green. Grab 502. That's slightly down. Reddit 145. That's green. Amazon 225. That's down 0.5%. Update on Amazon. They are transitioning their Project Kuiper satellites to SpaceX instead of using Blue Origin, which is a big deal for SpaceX. I didn't even know Amazon was competing with SpaceX on broadband connectivity, but they are. And yesterday was announced that they're going to be using SpaceX satellites to launch, or SpaceX launch rockets to launch their satellites in order to compete with Starlink. So they're kind of using one part of SpaceX business to compete with the other part, which is pretty cool. But that's what you got on Amazon, 223. Meta 707, that's down 0.5%. Salesforce down, or that's up 0.5%. Apple is up 1%. SMCI is down 0.5%. Where is Pew Pew Pew? That stock is up 15%. It was up 40%. So anyone who bought at what, 22 is down a bit, or actually it was at 27. So we'll see how that one performs. Yeah, there you go. There's a nasty red candle right there. Actually, it was 25. So it's down from 25, but still up almost 12% on the day. TLT is up a little bit. We'll talk about bond yields. Bond yields are spiking because, the market is thinking that inflation might be a little sticky, and, they're kind of selling off bonds to get into stocks. Not the worst thing in the world, but nonetheless, we do have some yields that are spiking, which is also probably why why Trump really wants J. Powell to cut, because we just can't have these. We can't refinance our debt if yields are this high. The Q's right here, basically flat. Roblox right here, up 1%. Uber is up 0.28. Where is Rigetti? Some of the quantum names. Whoa, why is Rigetti up 16%? I do not know. I'll see if I can find some data on that. Are the other quantums collaborating with Rigetti? So we have Rigetti up 16. IONQ is up 3. That is not the same. And then D-Wave, QBTS, that one's up 3. So Rigetti specifically, Robinhood back at 101. Palantir back at 150. Robinhood 101, Palantir 150, NVIDIA 171. Palantir might be going for 151. Not sure why Rigetti's up, but it's up. Seems like there is a reason for why it is up. Rigetti demonstrates multi-chip quantum computer. That's the headline. Rigetti demonstrates multi-chip quantum computer. I don't know the internal nuances of quantum computing, but the street thinks that's bullish. And it looks like the market's getting some momentum for Rigetti based on that. Robinhood, wow, we touched 102, folks. There she goes. She's running. She's running. 102 on Robinhood and 150 on Palantir. Where is Rocket Lab? Rocket Lab, wow, 46 on Rocket Lab. Holy moly. Oh my, 46 on Rocket Lab. That's a new all-time high. Palantir 102 is also a new all-time high, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. 102.20, that's an all-time high. And then Palantir 150.50, that's an all-time high. Tesla going to 315, AMD going green, SoFi trying to break 22. I mean, dude, if we can get 103 on Robinhood, 151 on Palantir, 47 on Rocket Lab, and 22 on SoFi, that would be fun. That would be fun. Okay, so Asml is down 8% because they had bad guidance. Now they're down 10%. They had bad guidance. So that is the reason why Asml is down. And not really bad guidance. They just had, like, the CEO said we're uncertain about some of the things that could happen in 2026. Maybe he's sandbagging, but the numbers they put out for guidance just weren't up to what the street expected. And that's why that stock right here is down 10%. Not really affecting the broader semiconductor industry, but it is specifically affecting ASML. That's down about 9.8% right there. Robinhood 102.34, Palantir just below 150, and then Tessie at 315. Disney right here is at 112. SLG is at 63. TFC is at 44.73. Let's check on the banks. JP Morgan, that's up 1%. Bank of America, that is flat. Citigroup, which had a great day yesterday. Citigroup at 90.49. And then you also had Morgan Stanley today. That one is slightly down about 2% on the day. Joby up 10%. I don't know the headline on Joby outside of what they reported yesterday, but the street loves it. There you go. Joby 10%. Joby 10%. Marvell is down. Okay, maybe that's because of ASML. Could that be? They didn't report anything crazy. Yeah, that's down 5.7%. I don't see a reason for that. I'll try to see if there's a headline, but I don't necessarily think they're that linked with ASML. But Marvell is another semi that's getting some pain today. Oh, let's go to the Ethereum Treasury. So SBET is up 17%. That one's basically holding the pre-market highs. BMNR, which Peter Thiel bought more of, that's up 15%, kind of flat from yesterday. It's up 15%, but yesterday after hours it was up 15%, so kind of flat from yesterday after hours. And then BTBT, that stock is up 12%. So BT outperforming. And that one is green. Lewis said, Amit, I hit 20K for the first time. I started investing in October 2023. I owe you a Shirley Temple. I appreciate the Shirley Temple, Lewis, because I cannot say no to a free Shirley Temple. But congratulations on 20,000. Absolutely incredible. A lot of people are hitting all-time highs in their portfolio. And again, you know, I say this stat over and over again, but I just want people to remember most people in the United States of America do not have $500 in an emergency savings account. So hitting 20,000 from an investment perspective is absolutely incredible. And it is amazing to see how the markets are reacting right here. Tesla right here, 314, Palantir 150, and Robinhood 102.17. Just takes a couple names. Just takes a couple names to consolidate into, and you can go from 0 to 20K in a couple years. And it is absolutely incredible. And the freedom and the autonomy that you feel when you have that extra capital on the sidelines, knowing that it's growing via investments, it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. Let's check resistance on Palantir at 151 and then Hood at 103, because they are definitely getting some love right here. So Palantir 151, resistance there. Again, Palantir did get upgraded today to 135 by Mizuho. 37,000 shares on Palantir at 151. On Robinhood, 103, which it looks like it wants it. We hit 102.30 30. 103 is 24,000 shares. And then Rocket Lab, NVIDIA is trying to go for 172, which would be incredible. Rocket Lab, 47 resistance is, let's see. I don't think it's going to be a lot. Maybe 30,000 shares, 47 resistance, probably less than that. 10,000 shares, 10,000 shares at 47. Not too bad. And then SoFi, let's check 22. It would be really nice to get that breakout on SoFi to kind of not just be stuck in the low 20s, but maybe make a run for 25, which would be very exciting. SoFi right here, $22 resistance is 81,000 shares. 81,000 shares on SoFi. Is Pew halted? Pew, the grab-a-gun SPAC by Trump. Wow, that's red, folks. She goes red. It is halted, 1711. From 25 to 17. She is red and she's halted. Where's Big Bear AI? That stock is up 1%. SoundHound is up 1%. And then Rigetti, are we still up 17%? It is up 14%. So down a little bit, but still green. Pew got shot. Yes, Pew got shot today. Maria said just hit 65K. Road to 100K has never felt closer. I love it. Congratulations, man. Absolutely congratulations. Incredible stuff. And the first 100K, you know, it's a hard one to get, but once you get it, it's like, you know, I think Munger said this, right? Didn't he say that first 100K is a bitch? I think it was Munger. It was one of these big investment guys that said that first 100K is hard, but once you get through, it just becomes easier as you have capital that can compound on capital. AMD right here, 155. Pfizer right here. That one's getting a little bit of a bid. Where's UNH? UNH has been taking a beating the past couple of days. All right, UNH is a little green, 294. Where's Oscar? Oscar had some insider buying yesterday, folks. Oscar had some insider buying. That one's still down 0.3%. Lemonade is up 2.3, but Oscar is down. UNH is going a bit green. UNH is going a bit green. Skrelly said he's shorting Rigetti. Wait, is that actually, did he actually just tweet that? Dude, this guy, I'm just curious how deep his short is and how much money he's borrowing for this, because I just don't know if it's working out, dude. Yeah, here we go. Shorting Rigetti. It's arguably bad news that they're still on 99.5% fidelity, which is nowhere close to being useful. Okay, this guy keeps saying that he's shorting quantum because it's quote unquote not useful, which I don't know if he's right about, but let's say he is right. The market doesn't care, bro. The market continues to think that quantum is going to have some use. And so he can keep saying he's short because of the actual practical inability to use it, which he might be correct on, he might be wrong on. But the market continues to take these quantum names higher. So I don't know. That is a bit weird. My two newest accounts collectively went from 278 to 542 since January. That's absolutely incredible, dude. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I see a lot of you guys, 65K to 100K. I turned 25K into 100K as of today. It took me 12 months. Options, Brit. I love it. I mean, this has been one of those markets that really has been benefiting a lot of retail if we took advantage of the dip. Tesla right here, 316. Tesla's breaking out a little bit. Tesla up almost 2% on the day. Palantir still holding 150, and Robinhood trying to get to 103. S&P is basically flat on the day. It's up a little bit. SoFi 2130, and then Google having some fun, 183.60. We talked about Asml. Their guidance wasn't the best, not affecting the broader semiconductor industry, but that one is getting hit. Where is Marvell? Let me see if I can see if there's any news on why that one's down 5%. No, it looks technical. I don't see headlines. Maybe they're affected by ASML in some way. Marvel right here, down about 5%. ASML is the one that's really getting hit the most. What else? Okay, so UNH, again, that one is getting some green. Again, the thing about UNH is I don't care that much about UNH. It is an $8,000 position for me, so I don't really do that much DD. And again, my time horizon is 2 years. I think I can get back up to 450. So the intraday swings on it going up or down, like, it really is not something I care about. However, and the reason I'm saying this is because Bill Ackman was tweeting up a storm about UNH yesterday, like just bearish UNH. I didn't read any of it because I just don't care that much. But there's some accounts on Twitter that are really big UNH accounts, and they were just dunking on Bill Ackman all day. They were like, this is the exact same BS he said when Netflix was $100 and he capitulated. And UNH is not going to pull a Netflix in terms of 10xing, but UNH definitely doesn't deserve to be at 294. And so I can't even exactly tell you, what the issues are outside of the Wall Street Journal article that came out a couple of days ago, accusing them of fraud, which we've kind of known about for the past couple of weeks. But Bill Ackman's bearish, and it's one of those things where, do you believe Bill Ackman or do you believe the crowdsourced retail due diligence that, quite frankly, think they know the company better than Bill Ackman? I don't know. But my opinion on UNH is you just can't expect a big move here. This is not a volatile name that can have a headline and immediately go up 50%. Like, it's not one of those stocks. It's a big stock. There's a big float. It's deeply undervalued in my opinion. But this is one you buy and you hold, and you just assume that, all right, you're getting a discount on a great quality company that has some headwinds. And eventually, if those headwinds subside, it'll have tailwinds and it should recover. So I don't think anyone should obsess on the day-to-day on UNH, really. I mean, if you're buying it, you should be buying it expecting your portfolio to not be volatile, because it should stay flat or slightly down or slightly up, but nothing that should go back to like 310 or 320 anytime soon. CoreWeave is green. That is correct. Nebius, Jose said he likes this one yesterday. He's thinking of buying this, or I think he already bought a little bit. Nebius right here, 52. CoreWeave is at 144. He's also having a YOLO play on Navitas. That one is down 2% on the day. APLD, Applied Digital, that one is up 1.4. I don't see any headlines on Marvell. I don't know why that's down 5, but it is down. Sachin says Big Pharma is in the habit of doing shady things as they know they can get away with a slap on the wrist all the time. So in my opinion, the bear case on UNH investigation is oversold. Yeah, I would not disagree that UNH probably did some shady stuff. That I think is like inevitably true. The question is, do they have to pay a parking ticket, or is the world's 15th largest company before the drawdown going to stay stuck at $200 for the next 5 years? Like, it just feels unreasonable to expect that level of multiple contraction once the investigations and stuff subside, and maybe they have to pay some fees, maybe they have to change some business practices. But I wouldn't imagine it stays that flat for that long. But if it does, I mean, that's why you're buying it, right? You want something safe, and it's kind of hedging your portfolio against the volatility of some of the growth names that are out there. UNH right here at 294, Tesla at 316. Tom Lee did buy BMNR. That news came out yesterday, but again, Tom Lee bought it when it went public. So it's kind of like restricted stock options, right? Where you're able to buy really low even if the stock's up. So he bought it basically at that same 450 price, $2 million of his own money. Same thing with Peter Thiel, bought about 5 million shares yesterday, and I believe it was at that 450 price. So it wasn't like Tom Lee or Peter Thiel were buying at 45.50. BMNR right here, 47.23. That is up 18% on the day. But their own personal capital is invested, which is good to see. All right, Trump just tweeted. Oh boy, this is a long one. All right, you guys ready? We didn't even talk about the AI investments in Pennsylvania yesterday. We'll cover that as well. Here we go. All right, this is a long one. The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again, just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Dems swore they had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made up story in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. He's throwing shade at some of the Republicans because the Republicans didn't vote for the crypto policy yesterday, so he's pissed off about that. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Wow. And past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history, and all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Democrats is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking about our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Okay. So that is Mr. Trump claiming the Jeffrey Epstein situation going on in this country is a hoax. And that's what you got. So, dude, look, I mean, you guys know my opinion about this. I think we should release those files and we should know what the hell's going on. By the way, Congress is working on an amendment to get the release of the files. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, this is supposed to be Trump's right-hand man, yesterday said we should unequivocally release the files. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. Again, this is the guy who defended the big, beautiful bill through everything. Yesterday, he said, and he wants everything released from the files. So, I mean, Trump is kind of going against his own Speaker of the House right here. And he's trying to convince the American public it's a hoax. I don't know if the American public's going to buy that, dude. Not when it comes to kids. I mean, not when it comes to kids, everyone, Democrat or Republican, can come together and be like, what the hell is going on? And the thing is, the more of these posts, the more it makes you think that they're hiding something, bro. It's just like human nature. If you keep talking about something and saying, don't believe it, don't trust it, it's fake, you're going to have people questioning it. Like, it is what it is. You're going to have people questioning it. So that's what you got. That's what you got from Mr. Trump. Robinhood right here, 102.3, Palantir 149.69, Tesla 318. Wow, Tesla, she's moving, folks. 318.3. She's moving. 318. Maybe she's going for 320 right here. PPI was really good. That is definitely bullish for Tesla. Google right here, 183, AMD 154, and then NVIDIA trying to get back to 171. Trying to get back to 171. Brendan, thank you for the $10 super chat. Just hit 250K at 25 years old. Wow. Incredible. I'm up 850% on Palantir, 200% on Hood. Your content has been a game changer. Appreciate the value you drop every day. Let's run it to 500K. Let's go. Dude, 250K at 25. I didn't have 250K at 25. That's, yo, put in the chat if when you were 25, you had 250,000. I don't think we're going to get a lot of people saying that is incredible, dude. Congratulations. And all of that on Palantir and Hood. Amazing stuff, dude. Incredible, incredible, incredible stuff. Congrats. 250K, 25 years old. That is a hell of a portfolio. And the best thing is you have a lot of time at 25 to let that compound, which is the beauty of getting into the markets early. NVIDIA right here, 170, S&P 622, AMD 154, and then Tesla 317. That's actually a good poll. Let's do that poll. Let's do this in the chat. I don't think we ever did this poll. What age did you enter the market? Let me do a poll. What age did you seriously enter the market? Like, seriously start paying attention, not just like, you bought a few stocks, but like seriously got in. I'm going to do 25. I'll do 30 to, let's do 35. Let's do your 40s and then 50 plus. 50 plus. Actually, it should just be 20s, 30s, and 40s. That makes more sense. 20s, 30s, yeah. 20s, 30s, and 40s. Let's see. I'm going to bet most people say 30s here. I got in. I was 2018. I was 21 when I started paying attention, when I started really caring. Let's call that 23. 23, I started really caring about it. And I started buying biotechs that I thought were going to cure all the diseases in the world, and I blew up my account. But at 23, that's when I started really caring. I would say at 25, I got like somewhat of a sophisticated understanding of it, of like, hey, like this is like how to actually like look at a company. But 23, I guess, is when I was starting to get more obsessed with it on the day by day. 41% of you say your 20s. Okay. Got a decent amount of people that got into their 20s. 30s is 34%. That's what I thought. I thought 30s would be up there. That's number 2. 40s is 16%, and then 50s is 8%. 22 started buying Canadian weed stocks. I think I definitely bought some weed stocks back during COVID. And I was like 23 during that time. Yeah, again, 23, I was buying stupid shit. But like, you got to go through the stupid shit phase to like get to the phase where you actually learn how to read a balance sheet and understand at least some fundamentals about a company versus just, oh, weed. I smoke weed. This company sells weed. Let me buy their stock. It's like, that's what you're doing when you're 20. All right, so 42% in their 20s, 33% in their 30s. Dude, I think I think like my generation's kids are going to be in at 18, or they're going to be in probably, with their parents' money, aka my money. If I give them 10 grand to play with at like 12 to 15, right, when they're really young, learning about it, and then seriously investing probably when they're 18. I mean, we know Invest America, literally every kid will have $1,000 if they're born today. based on the big, beautiful bill, if they're born anywhere after December 31st, 2024, they are already invested into the S&P 500. So, I mean, we're going to have 3.5 million kids start literally at birth, which is incredible. Okay, Open Door. A lot of you guys are talking about Open Door. This stock is up 20%. So here's the issue with Open Door. I think there are some rumors about a couple of ways that they are getting ready to release their earnings and some things they may show to the upside in regards to margin expansion, which is why Open Door is getting a bid. That's one reason. Number two, you have the expectation of rate cuts coming down. That's why Open Door is getting a bid. And number three, quite frankly, you've got a lot of retail that are pumping Open Door. And this happened, like sometimes this stuff happens overnight, like Oscar came out of nowhere. The Open Door community kind of came out of nowhere. And over the past, I'd say 48 hours, I've been seeing a lot of people pump Open Door. Now, does that mean this is a good stock to invest in? In my professional opinion, and the reason I can say professional here, quote unquote professional, is because Steve, Kris, and I spent a lot of time doing DD on Open Door because we were thinking of buying this thing back in December of 2024 when it was basically at the same price, $1.20. And we concluded that their margins are so disgusting, even if you were to assume a massive bull market, that it's very hard to see them making a profit. Now, this is what the bulls are saying right here in the chat. They changed their business model. They're now working with realtors. I haven't fully looked into that. If they are fundamentally changing the business model and it's not buying a house and selling a house and trying to get a margin, which is like a literally less than 1% gross margin that you can get in between this spread of the buy and the sell, and they're starting to go through like a commission model working with realtors, then maybe that's a game changer. Maybe that's something different. I don't know. So I've got to do more DD into it. But if you buy in right now, you're probably chasing this on momentum. Maybe it's the right thing to do from a trading perspective. Maybe this is going to crash and burn. But those are the updates on why Open Door is getting the momentum that it's getting. Pew, 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 by the way, down 7%. Down 7%. It pumped to 25 in the pre-markets. Now it's down. Now it's down. That one is down 7%. Here is the stock draft. We got Matt up 15%. Tanner's up 9%. I'm up 5.7%. Steve's up 1.5%. Kris is down 1.75%. Marvell's really hurting him today. That one's taking a hit. And Axon is down. Is Axon down today? Axon. Yeah, Axon's down 1%. All right. So Axon, Marvell, UNH, and Novo are hurting Kris. Eli Lilly as well. There was potentially a competitor to Ozempic that came out yesterday from China. That's why Eli Lilly is getting hit. Oracle is his best performer, up 11%. Also, Elf is not doing the best for him. Matt, Rocket Lab's doing great. Tanner, NVIDIA, Coinbase, TSM are doing great. Steve, MicroStrategy is doing great. And then for myself, Hoodie and AMD are doing great. Duolingo is my biggest loser right here. This one just getting demolished. Duolingo is just like absolutely one of my worst picks. If I didn't have Duolingo, I think we would be near 8 or 9% of the portfolio, but right now we're at 6%. S&P 500 right here, 622.3, SoFi 2110, and then Palantir goes red, 148.5 down on the day. So that's what we got. Rocket Lab, is that still at 46? Wow, dude, 45.18, not at 46, but it's still doing pretty damn well. Rocket Lab's up almost 15% this week. 15% this week. Meta's dumping. Are we below 700 yet? Can I finally buy it? Meta 704. Okay, so it's not below 700. It's down 1%. I don't think that's a crazy dump, but let's see if there's any headline. Oh, we do have a headline on Meta from yesterday. I don't think this is a bad headline, but I will talk about it in a second. No, Meta price target raised to 850. I don't know why it's down. We expect Meta to report solid Q2 results with ad revenue growth remaining in the mid-teens year-over-year, despite some modest Q-over-Q deceleration, in part reflecting tariff-driven uncertainty. We raise our price target to $850 from $825. Not sure why Meta's down, but Meta is down. Okay, the big news on Meta, though, folks, they are absolutely stealing everybody. Like, when I mean everybody, they are stealing everybody. Yesterday, we got some confirmation right here that Meta stole 2 top researchers from OpenAI. Let me pull up their names in a second. But these are 2 like really good researchers from OpenAI, and Meta poached them. Meta poached them yesterday. So maybe the street's taking it down because the market's like, hey, Meta's spending way too much on these researchers. But I feel like that would still be a good reason for Meta to go green. Jason Wei and Hyung Won Chung
Hyun was the head of Codex and core architecture behind GPT-4. And Jason Wei was the head of scaling laws and the co-author of a lead researcher for agentic models and reasoning at OpenAI. Both of them went to Meta. Both of them, bro, not one, both of them, along with the other 8 that left 2 weeks ago, went to freaking Meta. Ethereum, by the way, getting some love, 32 hundo on deck for Ethereum. Bitcoin at 118.6, Ethereum trying to crack 3,200. So, okay, yes, obviously I butchered those names, bro. If I can barely say English words, you think I'm going to be able to say these Asian names? Like, no, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell I was going to say those names right. But the point is, why is everyone leaving to Meta? Like, what is going on? It's weird, bro. Like, what is Zuck's offering? Like, is it just the money, or is it? I mean, he did say we're going to give you the greatest compute per researcher, so I get that there's going to be a ton of money or a ton of infrastructure from a GPU perspective that Meta is going to be able to give to this talent. But it's just like, what else is there? What else is there that he's giving at this level? And I don't know. Money talks, yeah, money. But these researchers already should be making pretty good money, if not their equity at OpenAI and the potential. I mean, dude, OpenAI is only a $300 billion company. This company is going to be worth multiple trillions. Like, their growth is just undeniable. Now, maybe the growth slows down and maybe the models get bad and maybe Grok ends up overtaking them. That's possible. But like, barring any of that happening, it's at least going to $1 trillion. You would think if you're an early employee, your equity is not going to 3x from 300 billion. You probably got in when the valuation was 50 billion, or even if it was 100 billion, that's a 10x. Is Meta going to 10x from here? Is it going to become a $20 trillion company? Meta's already $2 trillion. Like, maybe, but it's easier to imagine OpenAI 10xing from 100 billion when the employees join and their equity 10xing versus getting stock in Meta and having to have that 10x. Unless Meta said, screw it, we're not going to give you any stock. We're just going to give you $200 million up front, which maybe was the case. Maybe was the case. Do they lose their stocks in OpenAI? Any of their unvested shares. So when you're a startup employee, you have vested shares and unvested shares, and usually it's on a cliff, which means every year you get, the standard is like 25% on a 4-year cliff. So if they were only there for a year, then they only get 25% out of the 100% that they were guaranteed. But if they're only there for a couple months, then, you know, they may be walking away with nothing. But a lot of these guys were there since the beginning of GPT-3. So I would imagine they have tons of equity in OpenAI that is vested. And, you know, that could be the reason they're leaving. They're like, okay, all my equity is vested, or at least a good chunk of it. I don't have that much further upside if I get new equity. So I'm going to go to Zuck's, where he's guaranteeing me 280 million right up front. Tesla 318, Pounty right here, 148. Maybe that's the logic on why some of them are leaving. Meta right here, 704 on Meta. Engineers follow people they respect. Well, I guess they respect Zucks more than freaking Sam Altman. Here is Zuckerberg yesterday on an interview talking about some of the AI build out that they're doing.
Basically, like, historically, when I was recruiting people to different parts of the company, you know, people are like, okay, what's my scope going to be? And, you know, here people say, I want the fewest number of people reporting to me and the most GPUs. And so having basically the most compute per researcher is definitely a strategic advantage, not just for doing the work, but for attracting the best people. And I actually think that that has been underreported as one of the main reasons why people are excited to come do this. The other is just having a clean slate is fun, right? I mean, a lot of times people refer to building up the infrastructure for these things. Someone gave me this analogy that it's like building a house. The first one you build for your enemy, the second one you build for your friend, the third one you build for yourself. And you know, I think the ability to start from a clean slate, you know, where you're not just at another company working on some other infrastructure, and you get the opportunity to build a new lab from scratch, is going to be, you know, I think it's just really appealing to a lot of people. So anyhow, yeah, I'm out there very focused on this.
I know we've got to let you go soon, but I have to ask, it was Sun Valley last week. You have.
All right. So Zucks is motivated to spend, baby. Zucks is motivated to spend. I sped that up a little bit. That's why it was faster, but he's motivated to spend. And one of the things he said is, if we have more GPUs per researcher, more compute per researcher, that is a strategic advantage, especially for the people that really care about achieving super intelligence. They want to have the infrastructure in place to allow them to achieve it. And it looks like Zucks is saying, hey, we have unlimited pocketbooks to give you as much infrastructure as needed. Just come join to us. And it seems like that's what's going on right here. Triple V, thank you for the 100 pounds Appreciate you, brother. It looks like Triple V is traveling here because that is not a US dollar. So seems like he is across the pond and he's hitting us with some of those pounds. So there you go. Thank you, Mr. Triple V, for being here. Thank you for the 100 pounds. Thank you for tuning in across the world. If he's in the UK, time in the UK is what right now? 3:02 p.m. Okay. Damn, dude. I didn't know this. The market open is at 3 p.m. It's afternoon in the United Kingdom right now. That is wild, bro. Because I'm like just starting the day and the market's opening, and it's like you guys are kind of either ending the workday or in the middle of the workday right here in the UK. Market opens at 2:30 p.m. That's wild. Yeah, whenever I travel to the UK, those market open. Can we do a market? Dude, I'm gonna have to keep like 2:30 to 4:30 open when I travel to London to do this market open. Time zones are indeed wild. Thank you, Triple V, for the 100 pounds. Appreciate you. And thank you for being here today. Robinhood right here, 102.10. So we do have some green right here on Robinhood. Let's take a look at some of these other headlines and see what we've got going on across the market. We just talked about that Trump tweet. Pouncer right here, 148. That's going red. Tesla, 316. That's also going a little red. We aren't seeing the massive pump in the first 15 minutes and then dump by 10 o'clock, which is what we saw over the past couple of weeks. I mean, S&P is about to go red, so at least on the indices, we're seeing some of that. But these other names are holding a bit of their momentum. SMCI 52 is ASML still down 10%. ASML is, down 11%. This one's still getting hit. This one still getting hit right now. Not affecting NVIDIA, which is nice. But that one is down almost 11% on the day. Marvell, is that one still down? Marvell is also down about 5%. Why is AMAT down? Honestly, I don't know. Applied Materials, that is in the semiconductor space. Dude, I feel like they're all following ASML, but I'm not necessarily sure about the correlation behind ASML and these other names. Is Unity down today? Unity's up 12%. Okay, so Unity is green. So that one's not doing too bad. BMNR, that one's still moving after Peter Thiel bought in. That's up 14%. SBET was up 15%. That one's up 14%, kind of flat. Meta 706, kind of holding the 700s. If Meta drops below 700, there's got to be some narrative that people are kind of worried about. But holding 700 would be good support. Robinhood holding 102. I mean, I'm just happy it's above 100 and it's not teetering at 98.99, which is important. And then NVIDIA right here, 170.3. Unity got an upgrade today. Okay, so that's probably why it's up 12%. European semis getting hit because of the tariffs. Okay, but if that is true, which is a reasonable explanation, that is a very short-term argument for the semiconductors being down, because again, the US and Europe theoretically should be working on a deal very soon. I mean, Trump said yesterday that he's working with the Europeans closely. Ethereum right here, 3,200. So I don't know. I mean, if that's the reason, then hopefully by August 1st, we get more clarity and those tariffs go away and they're not as intense. But yeah, that seems like a more logical reason than ASML, that some of the semiconductors that have a heavy business in Europe are getting affected. By the way, speaking of trade deals yesterday, Indonesia. We got a trade deal with Indonesia yesterday, and I actually like this one. We do about $40 billion worth of trade with Indonesia. And Indonesia will be buying, as per Trump, $15 billion of U.S. energy, $4.5 billion of American agricultural products, and 50 Boeing jets. And we have 19% tariffs on Indonesia, while the U.S. will pay 0%. So not a horrible deal, considering we do about $40 billion worth of trade with Indonesia, and they're going to be buying about $20 billion worth of our stuff, which is nice to see. It's nice to see. So I think that was a good deal. If we get more deals like this, that means we're not going to be doing 35% tariffs on Indonesia, like he said in that letter last week. And if we can have deals like this with Cambodia and the Philippines and just get some level of strategic concessions from these countries in exchange for dropping their tariffs, then I think that would be rather bullish. Let's get an update on PPI and some coverage right here, and then we'll keep going from there.
No matter who is
100%. Nasdaq's at a record high. S&P is what? 1% or 2% away from a record high. So let's see. I think that higher yields definitely could stand in the way of all of this. And
that 30-year at 503 this morning will get your attention.
Sure, that could be a risk, but I think the overall feeling is that we didn't get the retaliation from around the world. Besides China and a little bit Canada, they didn't get the retaliation. That was another big fear when it comes to tariffs and how that would impact the global economy.
30% is coming for Europe, right?
Right. Well, so far they've been very calm when it comes to retaliation.
I think it's interesting that we're assuming that we're done.
We're not assuming done. We're done. But look, it still could come. But so far, I think it's surprising that we have a lot of the sectoral tariffs, a lot of the other look, they're making trade deals with countries like Indonesia and Vietnam with 20%
do we know
tariff
anything
rates.
About that deal? Do we know a single thing about the deal?
We know that there are going to be higher tariff rates as part of the deal. And I'm just...
Why is he being so aggressive today? I've never seen this guy get this aggressive as Sarah, bro. Seems like he's upset about... I've never seen them be hostile towards each other ever. Either they're just doing it for TV or he genuinely is upset about the tariffs.
Saying that is not leading to market weakness in a way that you might have expected.
That is for sure. That is for sure. The rebound off of liberation has been remarkable.
Right.
But for a bunch of other reasons, too. It's not just about better feelings about tariffs.
No, I mean, it's happening at a time where AI is booming. And you're not seeing the overall weakness.
Yeah, he went long pew in the morning, bro. That's why he's pissed. He trusted in Trump's son's gun SPAC, and he's down 30%.
We just went through bank earnings season, and the consensus on the economy is it's doing okay.
Absolutely.
And bank revenues are up. You know why? Because their volatility because of the tariffs is leading to a lot more trading revenue for big banks.
That's part of it. I mean, the macro is that the consumer's in amazing. The consumer's in amazing shape and remains so.
Yeah.
We'll see to what degree that changes, especially at the low end.
So far, so good. That's all. I'm not saying, this is definitive endpoint, but so far a lot better than expected. And I think that explains a lot of the market strength.
Fair.
Thank you.
As we're back to the flat line, let's get to NVIDIA. Speaking of all this, shares are hovering around an all-time high after the company got clearance to resume those chip sales to China. Jensen Huang talking in Beijing overnight about doing business there.
Hope to have a great future here. NVIDIA has been coming to China for 30 years. As you know, China is the second largest technology market in the world. And it is also growing very quickly. And so this is a very important market. There's a lot of very dynamic and innovative customers. If you want to be a good supplier, a good company, you have to have excellent customers as well as excellent products. And so in China, we have very challenging and very dynamic and very innovative customers, and we want to be able to serve them. And so I will continue to do that.
So we talked about NVIDIA in the morning. There's a longer clip of Jensen speaking about all the different issues in regards to why they're re-entering the Chinese market. But overall, I mean, he's pretty damn excited to come back, and the market is excited as well. Folks, we hit 103. We hit 103 on Hoodie. Wow, we hit 103 on Hoodie. There she goes. She broke through. She broke through 103. We should probably get right back there. There she is again. 103. I think resistance was like 10,000 shares. Broke through it. And it looks like she wants to be at 103. My goodness. They were stuck at 99 to 100, 98 to 100 basically for the past week and a half. It has not gone below a 90 since the crypto event. They were keeping her there, and now they are letting her come out. And also, crypto's not even going crazy. I mean, Ethereum's having a little bit of a run, but usually Robinhood moves with Bitcoin. Ethereum right here, 31.95. Bitcoin's kind of flat today, 118. It's nice, but it's not at 120 like it was a couple of days ago. Robinhood is breaking out right here, 103.14. Is BMNR running as well? BMNR? Yeah, wow, that one's running too. That one was only up like 12%. That just made a 10% move in like what? 5 minutes? We checked it 5 minutes ago. That's up 22%. That's outperforming all the Ethereum treasuries. SBET right here, 17, even though SBET is also going green. BTBT was up 11%. That one is now still up 11%. And Robinhood up 4% on the day, 103 is moving. Yeah, Ethereum hit 3,200. That's probably helping the treasuries. Ethereum really doesn't correlate with Robinhood that much. But if it's going to start to correlate with Hoodie, because people do buy Ethereum on Hood, I mean, that could be your catalyst. That could be your catalyst. BMNR has 165,000 ETH. SBET has 270,000 ETH. BMNR market cap is higher. Your thoughts? My thoughts are that people are willing to pay a Tom Lee premium to net asset value. And that's why BM&R has a higher MNAV. So you are correct. I mean, SBET is cheaper at I think a 2.5 MNAV versus a 4.8 MNAV on BM&R. But BM&R has Tom Lee, and I don't know who the CEO of SBET is. So if you believe that Tom Lee's worth the extra premium, I guess that's why you buy it. If you don't, then, you know, if you do want to get exposure, maybe SBET is a better bet. I don't know if there's structural differences between both companies. I'm trying to do an Ethereum deep dive this week. And so I've already messaged a couple people, and hopefully we can do that tomorrow at 9 p.m. to go deeper into these Ethereum treasuries. But there probably are some nuanced differences between them, causing the difference in the premium as well. Robinhood right here, 103.3. Well, let's check 104. Let's check 104. SBET has the support of an Ethereum co-founder. Okay, I did not know that. But that's not increasing their multiple. Because Tom Lee is getting BM&R to have a higher multiple even without having as much Ethereum on the balance sheet. 104, 12,000 shares, folks. We can break 104. We can break 104. We can do it. The chairman of SBET is a co-founder of Ethereum. Yes, I didn't know that, but I couldn't tell you who the co-founder of Ethereum is besides Vitalik. Guys, I remember a lot of the stock market is emotion, is perception, right? A lot of people know Tom Lee. I don't know if a lot of people know the co-founder of Ethereum besides Vitalik, and I don't even know how many people know Vitalik if you're not deep into crypto. But almost everyone knows Tom Lee. So I mean, there is an argument there, just from a marketing perspective, on, you know, who you have leading the ship. Dude, are we about to go to 104? 104 is 10,000 shares. It's not a lot. 12,000 shares. Now, it is not a ton if we break above. And if we start normalizing the hundreds, this could be very exciting. Pouncer right here, 148. Tesla, 314. S&P 622. NVIDIA, 170.3 on the day. Christopher Patel, good morning.
What's up, dude? Man, I feel like we missed out a little bit on this Ethereum thing. I've been talking about it for like a month, and I'm just trying to research like how to actually value this thing. And sometimes you got to follow the Druckenmiller thing, which is just buy the thing that's moving and figure it out later. And I don't know, I'm just not that guy. But yeah, this is one of those things that I think a lot of people should have seen coming, especially after it was mentioned as part of like the stablecoin legislation, on how a lot of these blockchains were all, I mean, a lot of these stable coins were going to be built on the Ethereum network. So,
dude, you were on the show in early July or late June, right at this price target, or where I'm showing on the screen, around $9 to $10. It was for the Iran-Israel stuff, but we ended up talking about Ethereum, and both of us should have just invested, then investigated.
Yeah,
We did.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. Sometimes things just kind of run on you, and you know, before you get a chance to really deep dive into something, it starts to move at a really rapid pace. And yeah, I mean, this market is one of those markets where it's driven more by sentiment than actual fundamentals. And there could be fundamentals there, so I'm not denying that, but I think the market is giving a lot of premium to these companies based on personalities, based on potential, rather than actual real world use cases on things. So, you know, that's why they're trading at more than their net asset value. Technically, you shouldn't be able to trade higher than net asset value. You should, if you're trading at higher net asset value, you should just buy the underlying security, right? But I don't know. Sometimes things just kind of work in another direction.
So, Chris, I got to ask you before we continue. We got Mr. Palantir lead architect Chad saying good morning, Chris, with a little winky face, because Palantir hit 150. You tweeted about this. I mean, what is your reaction to seeing this happen?
I mean, this reminds me of the year 2000 when my dad lost my college fund, you know, because my dad was following markets and just like, oh, look, this stock is going up. This stock is going up, so I need to buy it. And you know, these were fundamentally good companies, you know, like Cisco and Oracle and QCOM. I still remember Qualcomm, but he bought them at a really, really high price. And after that, it fell 70, 80%. And, you know, things just kind of went downhill from there. And so whenever I see companies moving up this fast and fundamentals are essentially broken, it really brings back a lot of bad memories. And so, you know, I'm happy for the people that bought it, congratulations, you're doing a good job. But, just remember that fundamentals eventually will catch up. And when that happens, everyone right now, as you're celebrating, make sure you're at least taking some principal out, making sure you're reinvesting in other things that are more, long-term in nature. Because this company is trading at like 115 times sales right now.
The exact number, I'll get it for you, but yes, it's above 100 times sales.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think? What it's going? Because so my definition of a bubble is when a stock collapses 50%. That would be 75. Do you think it's going back to 75?
I think your definition is off then, because it should be.
What should be the definition of a bubble?
Well, I mean, if you look at traditional bubbles, like 70% is probably about right. 70, 80. It could even be even more than that. I mean, look at a lot of the tech companies during the .com bubble. The one difference that you do have to take into consideration is that this company is making money. It's not like, oh my God, hand over fist money, but it is making money. So it's not like a complete fraud that's going to drop 99%. It's going to go back down to, some single digit numbers. I don't think that's even remotely possible. But could we see a 70, 80% correction? Yeah, could happen.
So that would be like 50, 60 bucks. You think with all the momentum behind Palantir, even though, the numbers are aggressive on the multiples, you think even with the story that's being formed, the amount of investors that's getting in, the amount of big names that are wanting to get exposure, you think it could actually drop that low over the coming years?
I think so. I think a lot of, like I said, the fundamentals will eventually catch up. And look, if insiders believe that this company was truly valued like it's undervalued right now, they wouldn't be selling. Look at Sham. Sham's position went from 4 million shares to 700,000 shares. Okay. I mean,
to be fair though, Kris, he joined in 2006. I mean, the guy eventually is going to sell, right? He's been there for so long, right?
No. Listen, totally understand that. But at the same time, you literally reduced your position in the company from a certain percentage to a very low percentage, right? So that's one thing to consider. And then on top of it, look at just how much dilution there's been since this company's gone public. It still dilutes at 6% per year, which, like I said, if you're willing to accept it, that's fine. I mean, yeah, they're building a cash position, but once again, why are you building a cash position? Why aren't you just not issuing as many shares?
Okay, last question on this. Do you agree at all with Tom Lee's argument that there are Da Vinci's in the market, that there are one-of-one companies, and a Palantir, NVIDIA, Tesla are those one-of-one companies that people are over willing to look some of the quantitative elements simply because they know they can't get another company like this, and that is what could elevate and continue to maintain the multiple?
I mean, it's possible. That's what happens. But whenever I see people say one-of-one companies, traditionally, it's unless they have some kind of really big strategic moat around their business that's completely makes them ingrained into the operating fabric of the basically of the economy, then no. I mean, there's still areas where it could correct. I mean, you had Meta, right, which is by far one of the most dominant social media companies, drop to what, $80, if you remember, right? Yeah. And this was a company that was generating significant amounts of free cash flow. So I think a lot of times the markets have ways to reprice things. I never take it this, yeah, let's just pay a ungodly amount of money for a company that's that's quote unquote the future. Yeah. So.
The only pushback I would say is Meta fell that much when we were in a full-on bear market. So if we avoid a full-on bear market, which Palantir did fall back in April, right, to 60, but I don't know if we get back to that full-on bear market time again.
I mean, it's really going to depend on how, to me, when I look at the numbers, how this company was able to kind of flip, in that their growth rate when they initially IPO'd was around 100%. It dropped all the way down to 20% in 2023, and then it's kind of reaccelerated and now going in the other direction. And it's gone from 20% now to, on a TTM basis, about 33, 35% year-over-year growth. So, there's the problem that you run into is the law of big numbers, right? Eventually, you're going to get to a point where it's going to be incredibly hard to grow 50% year-over-year. And so then your growth starts to kind of decelerate 40, 30, 20, and then it it moderates at some point, and then people like are going to value this not based on its growth, but on what kind of growth can it maintain over a long period of time. And then once you have that, then yeah, I mean, right now, Palantir definitely gets a huge AI premium, and I think that's why it's riding really high. But like I said, I've been through this before in my life, where I've seen, people get really close. It's like Icarus with wax wings getting too close to the sun, and eventually the wax wings melt. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I have no hate for anyone that's made a crap ton of money on this. But once again, whenever I see this stuff like this, I have personal trauma from companies being super overvalued and buying into super overvalued companies and then dealing with the fallout of it. So, yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you a bunch of questions on some other stocks, but give me your take on this, bro. What is going on with Powell potentially resigning, or people in the administration saying that he's going to resign? And what do you think the markets would do if he actually did resign or get fired?
Well, first of all, I think Pulte's just being, I don't know what his issue is. He's just being really, really stupid and in constantly like, oh, Powell must resign, spreading rumors about it. Like, dude, you're trying to get confidence in the US dollar. The last thing you want is a Fed chair that's basically acquiescing to like the whims of politicians. Why? Because then what happens is politicians, they have this way of doing things that are just expedient rather than long-term focus. So if right now if you look at like Erdogan over in Turkey, right? They have no control over their central bank. They tell them, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and the central bank does it. What did Turkey get? Massive amounts of inflation. Because that's what politicians want. They want the easiest way to win political victories. They're not a lot of times, that's why you need this independence of the Fed. I mean, I think someone said even Brazil, they didn't like Bolsonaro, even though he was against, I think, some of the central bank making some policy moves. They didn't like get rid of their central banker, So this constant attack on the Federal Reserve and the chair is not a good one. And I know some people are going to say, "Oh, it's all political. It's all political." Bro, it's not nearly as political as people are making it out to be. I think these tariffs are going to have real world impacts on prices. There are certain factors that are countering that narrative. In my opinion, housing is like the one area people really are not looking at that needs a lot more closer attention. And that's probably what's driving Pulte up the wall too, because he's in charge of what is that? The Federal Housing Administration. So he's got to deal with a housing crisis if it comes to that. And I think right now the trajectory that we're headed towards, we might see, like I said, either a crash in housing in certain areas or just moderate growth in housing for a long period of time. I mean, you're about to deport 5 million people. About 1 million people have kind of left already on what is that thing called? On a self-deportation basis. You've deported like 200,000. The growth rate in the United States in terms of like natural birth rate is barely 1%. It's not even, I don't even think it's at replacement level right now. So, you're definitely going to see like population starting to kind of moderate, population growth significantly moderate. And like I said, that could set us up for a massive deflationary wave in the future. But in the short,
hold on. Do you think Jay Powell should be fired?
No, absolutely not.
Do you think he should resign?
Absolutely not. No.
So do you think he should then cut rates?
No. As long as Trump wants to play this game of chicken with tariffs, Powell has no choice but to keep rates where they are. The ramifications for the tariffs are not going to be crystallized for a while. I mean, and there's, like I said, there's too much uncertainty for Powell to make any decision right now. And this, like, one of the things you highlighted today, the thing with Indonesia, right? Like, oh, we got a trade deal with Indonesia where we're going to tariff them, but they're not going to have any tariffs on us. Yay, victory America, right? Rah, rah, rah. Except for one stupid thing, which is whenever we buy anything from, let's say, Indonesia, we pay the tax. Tariffs is just another way of saying tax.
Yeah.
It's, the the price of goods that are coming from Indonesia, someone pays for those tariffs. It's usually the importer. So the importer jacks up the price to match that. And that's how you get it. And so now you're basically taxing people, right? Indonesia is not stupid in saying, well, look, if we buy shit from you, right, which they clearly are going to buy stuff from us, we're not going to tax our own citizens like that. It makes no sense. So I think a lot of the trade deals that we're getting right now is like, oh, we're doing tariffs. Okay, what you're essentially doing is just taxing consumers, and you're doing it in a very stealthy way. And if that works for you and that works for the administration to pay down the debt, by all means. I don't think that that's the way to do it. But once again, the administration has their own opinion. They're going to do things their way, and we'll see where things fall. Where things end up in about 2 to 3 years.
Do you think we should be worried about bond yields? 30-year trying to get back to 5, 10-year trying to get back to 4.5. We cannot refinance the $10 trillion of debt at these rates, which is why I think Trump keeps pounding the table on firing Powell, or at least getting him to lower rates. How do you think the next 6 months plays out in regards to bond yields and the refinancing of our debt?
I mean, it's once again, it's all going to be driven by inflation. And in my opinion, if these tariffs have never come out, Powell would have cut already. The dollar still would have been stronger, and we would have actually seen what is that thing called, the cost of servicing the debt actually come down. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now is the ramifications of the Trump administration moving things around. Also, like the Trump administration being so bullish on crypto is also another, not in my opinion, okay, this is just my opinion, not the greatest thing on the planet, because all you're really doing is undermining the credibility of the US dollar. It's one of those things, like you want to remain king dollar, but I don't know, they've got different processes in place. They have a different understanding of how they want to maintain US primacy over the world. But from what I'm seeing, you're basically creating anonymity with the entire planet, and a lot of countries are like, you know what, do we really want to be under the jackboot of American trade dictatorship?
Yeah. All right. I think that's fair. The questions, and I agree with you. I think Powell would have cut by now if we didn't have the tariffs, but I still think, we probably should get some cuts if we get some August 1st deals hopefully resolved.
Here's the thing, didn't they revise the PPI number higher?
I didn't look into that. I know the top line PPI was way lower, but last month's could have been a bit
right. So see, this is the problem with the data too. There seems to be a lot of revisions happening all over the place. Even
with the revisions, though, I think you would agree we shouldn't have a federal funds rate double the rate of inflation, right? Like that part, I think Trump has a reasonable argument to say, hey, 25 basis points is not going to hurt the economy.
Well, hold on. So here's a question. If the economy is strong right now with 4.25, 4.5% interest, what's the issue here? Is the market not at all-time highs?
Because people can't afford a home. Like that seems to be
they're renting right now.
Come on.
Amit, listen. Right now, the cost to rent versus the cost to buy is there's an extreme difference between the two. Consumers are going to go towards the thing that's going to actually give them, the ability to pay and do their thing. Yes. Do I think it's important for people to buy a home? Absolutely. It's a home. People should be able to buy a home. But if you end up lowering rates and the price of homes go, accelerate higher, and you're now signing up for 100 years worth of debt slavery, is that worth it?
Well, no, but dude, people need to be able to buy a house at one point in their life, right? But
people can buy a home at 5% interest, 6% interest, 7% interest. People in the 80s and 90s were buying homes at 8%, 9% interest.
Okay, but Chris, that argument. In the 90s, we didn't have the type of economy we have today. You can't compare the 90s interest rates. My point is just, yes, people can rent, but at the end of the day, there needs to be a housing market that is stimulated on both sides.
You want prices of homes to be more reasonable. You want them to come down, so you're not creating an entire generation of just debtors. The price of homes is the main issue right now. It's not the interest rates. Homes should themselves be actually affordable for people. Not, hey, let me buy $1 million house and then just become a debt slave to that house for the next 50 years. And this is where right now we need more housing, build more housing. And that's the one thing I do like about the Trump administration's policy on let's build, baby, build.
But to build more housing, you do need some rate cuts.
Why?
Right? Well, the cost of capital to borrow to build the house. I mean, unless Lennar is just going to cheaply borrow money somehow to buy house, like you do. It helps to have that cost of capital come down, at least to an extent.
Well, here's the thing with Lennar and all these other things, just make it easier for them to build houses, take away the regulatory burdens. If you need to do some subsidizing on, getting building permits and everything else done, ease the process to build more homes if that's the end goal. I mean, then again, there's also another argument that, hey, right now there might be too much housing. So a lot of this stuff is very multifaceted. And how things are. All I know is right now, interest rates, they're not as high as people think they are. Yes, they're high compared to the last 5 years or 10. Well, not even 5, like let's say 10 years. 10 years, people were spoiled by low interest rates, which were historically low. All right. Right now, we're pretty much at normal interest rates.
Okay. NVIDIA, $4 trillion. Is this something we should be excited about or worried about?
I mean, for anyone who's holding NVIDIA, bro, they're generating so much free cash flow. They're buying back so many shares. I mean, keep holding it. Enjoy. I think eventually NVIDIA will correct also because, semiconductors tend to be a cyclical business. Right now, the flavor of the day is just AI. So people will keep buying these AI chips and they'll make money,
All right, last question for you, Kris. I might have to cut you off if we see 104 on hoodie, but a lot of people are asking about this one. UNH, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it stays flat? Do you think Bill Ackman has a point? How are you thinking of this stock right now?
It's definitely got a lot of hair on it right now because of bad PR, but fundamentally the case for this company is very strong. Like they're generating a lot of free cash flow. They have a lot of optionality to buy back shares. There are some regulations that are coming that could hinder some of their top line growth a little bit going forward, but essentially it's a very strong business. So this is not something that is going to have a V-shaped recovery and you're just going to see it recover right away. There is a little bit of kind of speculation that Wall Street Bets is taking an interest in this thing.
Really?
I don't. Yeah, you can look at it. It's like the second most talked about ticker. Retail is starting to kind of like talk about it, which is interesting. But I think it's too big of a company for Wall Street Bets to really like move it in any.
It's behind NVIDIA on Wall Street Bets.
Yeah, so it's between NVIDIA and Tesla.
Dude, that's hilarious. So retail is saying it's undervalued, basically.
Yeah. It's just retail's really, really digging in, and they're putting their money where their mouth is, basically. But like I said, I wouldn't base my investing decision based on like, hey, Wall Street Bets people are super interested in buying this. I think the company itself is just fundamentally very strong. They've got their old CEO back, and they're right now they're definitely in a wave of bad PR. They've got a lot of hit pieces on them. Some of the stuff that I've been researching about the negative headlines, I think they're very isolated incidents that in the short term are going to look really bad, but long term, this is one of those like entrenched players in the insurance industry, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And they know how to reinvent themselves to get to a point where they're going to be able to make a lot of money. The new CEO came in, bought 25 million shares. Other board members bought shares. So the key is for UNH is if you buy it today, just be patient. Don't look at it every day. And there'll be some good returns in the future.
All right, last question for you, Kris. Guys, Kris's Twitter right here in the chat. You can follow him here on X. Are you buying Ethereum at all yet or no?
I'm waiting for you to do that stupid episode so I can figure out like what the real value of these companies are and how people are actually going to make money on this thing. Outside of just buying Ethereum. I'm like I said, I want to maximize my return, but I don't want to buy something I don't understand.
Yeah,
I
feel like
I have a very vague understanding And the best understanding that I have with regards to how Ethereum makes its money is that on one hand, they have dividends, which is, hey, if you're proof of stake, you're going to get paid in Ethereum. And then on the other hand, they also burn some Ethereum also. So, there are blocks that get burned automatically. So if you look at the amount of Ethereum that's out there, it's relatively stable. And so, it's almost like a company buying back shares and then issuing dividends at the same time.
Right.
Like, which is traditionally really good. Like, that's the kind of business model you want. And so if all of these transactions go from being transacted cross-border and what is that thing called? Transactions, like even like from person to person, if they end up all getting segmented to the blockchain and they're all being built on Ethereum, then hey, even if you're just picking off pennies, that's trillions of pennies that you're picking up. So
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
All right, we'll try to do that deep dive soon. Chris, thank you for joining. Chris' Twitter right there in the chat.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later this week. Later. All right, folks. Hoodie, she's been trying for the past 30 minutes to break through 104. She's been trying, but she has not broke through yet. Saint Mac, thanks for the $5, dude. I thought I was watching the live show and I was watching the one from yesterday. That is hilarious. Well, hopefully you got to experience some of the headlines we had yesterday. What did you miss? Well, nothing too crazy today outside of ASML being down 11%. Based on some bad guidance. You got Robinhood breaking above 103. Palantir touched 150 again. Tesla trying to get to 320. SoFi stuck at around that 21 range. Google at 183. No major headlines on trades or tariffs. Bond yields are coming down a little bit. They were up yesterday. 10-year was at 4.5. 30-year was at 5. They're down slightly on the day. And then PPI, which I think Chris is right. It was a little higher last month on the revised, but overall, the numbers that we got today were spectacular on core and headline in terms of being way better than expected. So outside of that, nothing else too crazy happening today in the markets. Are we loading up on ASML? I just, Joseph Carlson, I think, who's another financial YouTuber, he likes this stock. He's been in this name for, I think, a year. I'm pretty sure he's done a video on it, and you can watch it on his channel. I really just don't know enough about lithography machines and what exactly ASML does to create the business model that they have. It's not exactly rooted in just GPU demand like NVIDIA and data centers. So yeah, I think there's other content out there that people can take a look at and see if this is worth buying on the dip. I'm curious to see what he says. I would imagine he's going to come out and say buy the dip unless there's a thesis breaker, which bad guidance is not a thesis breaker. It's just a crappy quarter that could be sandbagged. So don't think ASML is the worst in the world here. You can check the wall on a stock price on Robinhood in particular by clicking on the yellow button near the stock price. The yellow button near the stock price. So I don't know how you do it on Schwab or Fidelity, but on Robinhood, so you see how Robinhood says 103.27. You click that yellow button, and it then takes you into the order book flow, and you can see the buys and sells and the resistance levels on a name. And 104, folks, there's no resistance, bro. It's like 12,000 shares. It is, all right, now it's 20,000. 20,000 shares. I think it wants to go higher. I think it wants to break through. Rocket Lab back at 46. Rocket Lab back at 46. Mate, when are you buying Tesla? Likely before earnings, whatever price it's at. Whether it's 320, 315, 300. Again, my range is 280 to 320 or 330-ish. That's kind of the price I want to buy. It's basically at 320 right here, 319, up 2.74%. My thesis is as follows. I think Tesla will be range bound from 280 to, let's call it 350 for the rest of the year. I think if it pumps above 350, it's purely hype. I think even above 330 is purely hype. And that hype could be justified, but I don't think the earnings are going to justify it. And so my range to buy is 280 to 330. And I'll be selling calls against it to reduce my cost basis. And if the calls really do get challenged, that's a good problem to have. If they don't, which I don't think they will, because even if they do get underwater, I think eventually Tesla will correct because they just don't have the earnings to justify a ridiculous multiple. I think this is the time where I consolidate and acquire. And the reason I'm coming to this conclusion is because Elon has done anything you can imagine to get this stock to be theoretically down 40, 50%. And it's resilient. It's still down 20% for the year, but it's up a decent chunk from 220 in the lows of March. And I just think that if Elon's beefing with the president and still the market's like, well, we don't care, then this is the range it's going to consolidate in. But I don't think it deserves a breakout to 400, dude. I mean, if that happens, I think it's pure hype because I just don't think the numbers are there for Tesla yet. They will be there hopefully by the end of 2026, but not yet. And that's why I think it's actually a really good candidate to sell calls on. But then again, when I sell calls on it, it's probably just going to bust through my call strike price. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's what I'm thinking of Tesla. Would you buy Nubank? No, I would not buy Nubank. Not that I don't like Nubank. Tanner loves it. It's great. I don't want to deal with the Brazilian part of their business, the Latin American part of their business. I think there's some, not necessarily headwinds there, just some headlines I don't know enough about in regards to Brazilian currencies, Brazilian tariffs, yada, yada. But I think Nubank is fine long-term. I know Roy, also Crossroads, he's super bullish on Nubank. So that stock right here, 13.59. That one's kind of been range bound between 11 and 13. How long do you plan on holding Tesla? I mean, forever. Like, dude, I've been so bullish on Tesla, the company, and Elon, the entrepreneur, for so long. I've owned Tesla in the past. I was just like really stupid when I was young and I sold it, like when I was in college. And then it just ran away from me. And I never got an opportunity to get back in, to really get back in. And so now that Palantir, Hood, and NVIDIA are heavily built out positions, I think it's finally time for Tesla. And quite frankly, it's worked out. I mean, if I had picked Tesla to consolidate in the beginning of the year outside of adding to Palantir, Hood, and NVIDIA, it would not have been the year that it's been. And I hope Tesla doesn't tank through. Actually, you know, I say I hope it doesn't tank if I start a heavy position because it would hurt my portfolio performance. But if it does tank, I'm not going to be that upset. I mean, I will get to just keep acquiring what I think is going to be the physical manifestation of AI over hopefully the next year. And hopefully have a really good entry price in it before it actually does eventually 10x. Why is Micron down? Dude, Micron, this freaking stock. I mean, Jose said he doesn't think the memory oversupply is that big of a deal, but this stock now down almost 8% since earnings, and they crushed earnings. Still up 30% for the year, 25% for the year, but that one is still down. Okay, this is another Ethereum treasury, GAME. Have you guys heard of this? GAME, GameSquare. Up 78% today. I heard about this a couple of days ago, but today is the day that it's making its move. GameSquare is another Ethereum treasury. Another Ethereum treasury. There you go. She's moving. She's moving. BMNR up 20%. BTBT up 12%. And then SBET, is that still up 17%? That one is up 18%. It's pretty freaking incredible. Pretty freaking incredible. Yes, Jeremy did sell some of his Palantir. I think he has like 1,500 shares left. I mean, like, it is what it is, dude. Palantir, he bought it at 7. It's done an incredible move. So I don't blame anyone for selling their Palantir right here. If you're going to take some profits, that's fine. Like, it is what it is. So now I do think it was kind of weird for him to sell Tesla at 250, even though I get it. But I just think long-term, there's so much potential with Tesla that you kind of let it play out. Hoodie, 104, baby. We broke through. 104 on Hoodie. We broke through, baby. 104 is here. She wants 120, dude. I think she wants 120. I think she knows S&P inclusion's coming up. The Q2 earnings keep going higher in terms of the estimates. The street knows they're going to crush earnings. Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing crazy. So Q3 volatility on the trading volumes should be phenomenal, or at least way better than where they were in Q1 and Q2. And overall Hood's executing 105 because we know what's better than 104, 33,000 shares. 33,000 shares at 105. 33,000 shares. There she goes. Dude, not bad. Volume on Hoodie is 20. Oh, that's a lot, dude. 20 million. Average volume is like 40 million. So it's done half its volume in about an hour and a half of trading. That is a decent chunk of volume coming into this stock. 104, baby. 104 on hoodie. Where's Rocket Lab? That stock 46. Rocket Lab still holding on. You got Tesla right here back to 320. There she goes, up 3% on Tessie. S&P 622. Pounds are trying to get back to 150. Google holding 183. Amazon 225. That's slightly down. Meta recovering a little bit from the lows. Elf still down on the day. Elf has been just hit pretty bad over the past couple of weeks. SMCI, that goes red. AppLovin 354. AppLovin and Hood, they're the candidates to get into the S&P if we have a rebalance in September. Palo Alto Networks 192. Reddit 141. Grab 502. GameStop 2342. GameStop CEO did a new interview. We'll watch that in a second. Ron Cohen, this is the first interview he's done in like 3 years. Archer 1148. Verizon 4130. And then Robinhood just under 104. Dude, pretty cool. Pretty freaking cool. My mom, I rolled her cover calls like 2 weeks ago to 120 for August 15th. I think she'll be okay. I think she'll be all right, 120 August 15th, but who knows, dude? Again, July, you tend to have fun. August, you tend to have some weakness. Does that happen this time? I think August 1st is going to let us know because we got this trade deadline stuff happening. But if we can not have these crazy tariffs, then maybe we're going to be okay. All right, let's get some more coverage on NVIDIA, and then let's pull up a couple other pieces of headlines that we didn't look at today, and we'll keep going from there.
And he's hustling, and I've never seen a guy work so hard at just at this consistent pace, and it's really amazing to see, and it's a privilege to know.
I mean, this is for a man born in Taiwan, right? There's a nice report this morning where he told some reporters in Beijing that he would love to buy a car from Xiaomi. I mean, it's just a different tone, but it's he's managing to ride both waves at the same time.
Yeah, he has a way with people too. He makes people feel special, and Jim Cramer's talked about it, but it really is true. And I think he has a way of rubbing off people, and you're seeing it. And this has been an amazing diplomatic effort by NVIDIA, and it's paying off. Let's hope it continues to pay off. And I'm pretty optimistic that they're getting not only 10% of sales back, but even more. It could be up to 20%. They do need to continue to get approval for chips as we go throughout the Trump presidency. But, I'll never put something past Jensen to be able to do so.
I know you're an equity analyst, and so you're analyzing the impact for the stock and the revenue for NVIDIA, which is all positive. But are there valid security concerns for why these were banned in the first place that will eventually come back and bite us?
Well, look, nobody knows better than Jensen. He says there's not a defense concern that it's not going to go into weaponry. I think when you look at the chips that are approved, they are prior. The H20 is it's kind of like ancient, but the fact that it's still better than what Huawei has is pretty impressive. And then the new RTX Pro that he put out doesn't have the HBM content. So it really means like they're going to use it in the digital twins, in certain industrial use cases. So, of course.
And that is why the street gave the price target to NVIDIA at around 220, or at least that's why Bank of America gave a price target for NVIDIA at 220. Dude, we cannot ring the bell for 104. You guys have to recognize there is a power to the bell. You got like if 105 on hoodie, we'll hit the bell. We didn't hit the bell on Robinhood at 149. We waited till 150. You can't abuse the bell is what I'm trying to say. You got to have the vibes and the intuition of when you ring the bell. You don't ring it just for 104. If 105 is right there, you wait till 105. You wait till 105. That's a nice round number where you ring the bell. You used to love Hood. You don't love Hood anymore? Dude, trust me. I love Hood. I'm looking at the gains on my portfolio right now on Hood. I love Hood. The bell whisperer. Yes, exactly. Dude, no, but seriously, like there's a certain intuition I have on when you ring the bell. Rocket Lab got to 45. You ring the freaking bell because it's 40 freaking 5. It got to 46 today. Did I ring the bell? No, because it's just like, you wait till maybe 48, 49, like let it breathe a little bit. Hoodie, we rang the bell for 102 2 days ago. You don't need to ring it at 103 or 104. You wait till 105. And there's a level of intuition and vibes that are associated with ringing the bell. And that's how you do it. And for Palantir, we got to ring the nice little big bell yesterday. 150, dude. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy, dude. Like a couple years ago, we were planning Vegas for 100 on Palantir, and now it's like we never did Vegas for 100 because 100 happened so quick. And then you'd be like, all right, Vegas at 150. It's like, well, 150 happened a couple months after that. It's just like, it is just incredible to see this happen in front of us. I think all of us underestimated how much the street would want to bid up these shares and take them up. Palantir is the first child. That's why they get benefits. Goodness gracious, bro. There are Bell protocols. Exactly. There are Bell protocols, dude. We know amidst real love. Dude, I told you guys the story last time with Palantir and Hood. When I saw Vlad after Q1 earnings, when I went to their offices in San Francisco, or Menlo Park, I think is where they're at. And I was standing there with the team, and they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have Gold Summit soon and hope you can make it. And I was like, what date is gonna be Gold Summit? And they were like, why? I was like, you know, because in March there tends to be other places I have to be at. And they're like, where else do you have to be? I was like, well, you know, I think Palantir might have an AIP con again in March. And then Vlad was like, so if you had to choose between us and Palantir, who would you pick? And they like all the employees just staring at me. And I'm like, you know, I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth because I obviously we know what my answer is going to be. I love my hoodies here, but we know what my answer is going to be. Like, I don't even think I need to say it because we know what my answer is going to be. So I was like, I plead the fifth. Plead the fifth. And they all started laughing. I think they know what my answer is going to be as well. But I'm picking AIPCon over the gold event. So a Bitcoin 119. All right. So that's also probably helping Bitcoin. Bitcoin right there, 119. There she goes. She can get back to 120. That would be super, super freaking bullish for a hoodie today. But yeah, I would pick AIPCon. Look, at the end of the day, I love Robinhood. It's an incredible company. And it's the second one after Palantir. We were talking about albums yesterday, right? Palantir was the first album. Robinhood is the second. And Robinhood was really important to show we can do it again. And Grab, hopefully, is the third one to show we can do it 3 times. But both of them have completely different stories, different dynamics, different ways they played out. One is enterprise AI software. The other one is a consumer finance company. But both stocks have had a similar move, which is pretty incredible. I am not treating Hood like a side chick. Get out of here. Get out of here. Hood is, if Palantir's the main, Hood is like, if Palantir and I broke up, Hood would be the first person I texted, basically. That's how I think of Hood. So she's not on the side, but she's there for the rebound if I break up with Palantir. But the thing is, Palantir and I are kind of married forever, so I don't think I'm ever like, I don't know if there's ever going to be a breakup where I have to run to Hood. But still, Hood has been pretty freaking incredible with Palantir. Hood is the work wife. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, dude. Hood is the work wife. Palantir is who you want to come home to. 100%. 100%. That's the best analogy. BM&R right here. Wow, BM&R 50. Up 27%. Up 27%. Dude, these Ethereum treasuries, incredible. That's a side chick. Is a work wife a side chick? I guess that is kind of the side. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you guys are right. I guess you're right. Dude, why are we even saying? The point is, I love both of them. If I had to choose, like, people are always like, if you have to pick one for the rest of your life, it would be Palantir. Like, it is what, like, I'm sorry. Like, if I had to literally pick one for the rest of my life to hold, it's Palantir. And I can give you some qualitative arguments for why. I can also give you a ton of emotional reasons for why. But, I mean, overall, it's like, I just think Palantir's moat is bigger. I think their TAM is larger, even though I think Hood can become a massive business from these levels. Obviously, Hood's multiple is more attractive than Palantir, but Palantir is getting a multiple for a reason. And so it would be Palantir, but the fact that, you know, I've been able to go on the journey with both of them has been very, very special. Okay, is Trump talking? Why are we getting a red candle on SPY? Why are we getting a red candle? Let me see. Did Trump say anything? No, we don't have any Trump tweets. Let me see if there's something else going on. She's expensive though. Yes, this wife is expensive. That is correct. I don't think Trump's talking, but we do have some red candles. Even Hoodie, they got rejected right at 104. So we maybe had some headline come out that's happening. CBS reporting that Trump is threatening to fire Powell. That's not new news, though. I mean, unless he's like very seriously getting ready to fire Powell, which, I mean, yeah, I think the street would be upset for like a day, but then I think the street would be like, holy crap, rates are coming down. Oh, that's the headline right there. Okay. Yeah, so that hit the terminal. Lawmakers say Trump indicated he will fire Fed Chair Powell. What wait, hold on. Lawmakers means that he's going legal. President Trump reportedly asked Republican lawmakers whether to dismiss Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Lawmakers say Trump indicated he will fire Fed Chair Powell. Okay, that's big. That's actually big. If he's going to his lawyers, maybe that's why all those representatives last night were tweeting, I have good sources that Powell will be fired soon. And literally these representatives were using the rolling eye emoji. It was like they were thinking of it like a game. It was so weird. Maybe it's because they heard from Republican lawmakers. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Anna Paulina Luna. She's a representative, right? Anna Paulina, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, right here. This lady. She's a representative from Florida. Look at this. Jerome Powell is going to be fired. Firing is imminent. Maybe she heard from the freaking Republican lawmakers because they heard from Trump last night on if he has the legal authority to do it. How would he fire him? I have no idea, dude. I think they would go through some legal gymnastics to try to figure it out. And I mean, I don't put it beneath the legal team of making it happen. I think they could find a way to make it happen. And then it would be up to Powell if he wants to take it to the Supreme Court. And Hood's getting hit, Palantir kind of flat, but you got a red candle. SoFi getting a red candle. S&P officially going red for the day. You got multiple red candles, not red too much. It's only down 0.08, but it is red from where it was. NVIDIA's going red. Tessie 318 from 320. The initial reaction is going to be ugly. That's my opinion. The initial reaction is going to be ugly if it actually happens. But eventually I think the street will move on because who's really selling their stocks because of this? But I think it would be ugly. The VIX is spiking a little bit right now. Yup. It's not a legal team. It's Congress. Okay, we got to try to get some more details on this. But look, I mean, when representatives are tweeting stuff like this, firing is imminent. I mean, dude, that's a big deal. What do they know that we don't know? 30-year spiking back to 5%, folks. Let's see if I can get some coverage on this. This would be a little bit of a mini black swan. I think that qualifies. Jay Powell's out. I think it qualifies as a little bit of a black swan that people didn't expect. I mean, Trump was threatening it, but was he actually going to go through with it? If he is, then it's definitely something people didn't see coming. S&P's kind of recovering, going green. I mean, do people really believe it's going to happen? Ethereum, 3250, Ethereum not getting hit, and then Bitcoin still 119. Is this our dip? Is NVIDIA 169.74 the dip? Goodness gracious, bro. Again, I think the street will react to it negatively for a couple hours, maybe a couple days, and then we move on. At the end of the day, if they're replacing it with someone who's going to cut rates, I mean, outside of the inflation issue, if that becomes dramatic from low rates, that's something the street's going to love. That's something the street is going to love. The bond vigilantes already let him know it was a mistake. See, but again, bonds have been spiking for the past couple of days, and I don't know, it hasn't been the worst one for the markets, but the question is if it continues to be bad. Okay, let me pull up this clip real quick while we're trying to get some more coverage on this. This is Ryan Cohen yesterday on CNBC asked about what they're doing with their money. And in general, I can't understand how anyone would buy this freaking stock based on how the CEO is speaking about their company. But here's what he said about their new strategy.
We've gotten our costs under control, and we've changed the business from a reliance on hardware and software to a significant focus on trading cards and collectibles generally.
And where?
Yeah.
And how do you think about crypto in the middle of all that?
We made an investment of just over $500 million into Bitcoin, and I look at it as a hedge against inflation and global money printing, and we'll see what happens. So,
but how much should people who are investing in GameStop think of you as some kind of like portfolio of assets and maybe even like a mini micro strategy or something?
No, I mean, we have our own unique strategy, and we have a very strong balance sheet, over $9 billion of cash and market.
By diluting shareholders by 80 million shares over the past 2 years, that's how they got that $9 billion. And there's no plan on what they're going to do with that $9 billion. I mean, I just don't understand how anyone's investing in this. Maybe because of the technicals, it's going to go higher or whatever, but it's not even being pegged to Bitcoin now. It's just not a CEO that gives you confidence. And it's really weird how he's communicating his message to shareholders, because it seems like he quite frankly just doesn't care that much about them.
Securities, and we will deploy that capital responsibly as I would my own capital, and only look for opportunities where the downside is limited and there's a lot of upside. So we'll be opportunistic when we see those opportunities.
Well, I'm curious what you think of your shareholder base these days, again, because I think so many people think about the shareholders during what was this GameStop frenzy, and just your ability to take to X or social media and get people, as I said, excited about what you're doing and how you think about that. It's very unusual. Well, it's just unusual. I mean, you and maybe Elon Musk, and I don't know if I should put you in the same category, but have sort of a very special ability to have this sort of fan following that's sort of very unusual. You can post an emoji of something and people go crazy.
We have a loyal...
It's so awkward, bro.
...shareholder base, clearly. I don't think there's many situations of public companies where the CEO receives absolutely no compensation and is, I mean, you can never be completely aligned with common shareholders because everyone has a different cost basis and has a different time horizon, but I don't get compensated. I've invested my own personal capital. I don't have any perverse incentives, and the goal is to maximize shareholder value.
So the argument here is that basically what Nick is saying in the super chat, Ryan takes 0 salary, 0 shares for being a CEO. He's fully aligned with shareholders. I don't think because you have 0 salary that you are fully aligned with shareholders. I just don't. Ryan Cohen, let's not forget, is already a billionaire. He already sold a company, I think, for $2.2 billion. He's already made tons of money. The idea that he's aligned with, I mean, what, Bezos' salary is like $1 from Amazon or something? Like, all these big tech CEOs don't have a massive salary, especially, you know, if you're at that level. They take $1, they take maybe a couple $1,000s, whatever, so they legally can take a salary, but all their compensation is stock. So the idea that the guy is fully aligned with shareholders because he doesn't take a salary to me is ridiculous, especially because he's already rich. And I don't think being aligned with shareholders is only from a monetary perspective. I think it's about communication. This is one of his first interviews he's done in 3 years. They don't do a shareholder call where they take questions. They barely have any press releases. I mean, they don't communicate to anybody. And they have not articulated, and not in this interview or the Fox News interview that he did yesterday, a strategy to pivot the business. The most we got was that, oh, they're getting into sports cards and collectibles. That's not a strategy. That's not like, what are you going to do to take over the sports card market? Like, you got lots of people that are in this stock, primarily retail investors, that believed in Roaring Kitty, that are holding a fat bag because Ryan Cohen has not articulated any form of strategy. It's the only thing he's done is dumped more shares on shareholders to raise cash. And they're not even doing anything with the cash. They have $9 billion. They bought like 4,000 Bitcoin, and they bought it at 100,000. They didn't even buy Bitcoin when it was time to buy Bitcoin. So it's like, I just think, I don't know, dude. Pew, 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 by the way, down 14%. This SPAC not having the most successful listing today. It was up 27% in the pre-markets. Now it's down 15%. But I don't know. I think GameStop's a joke, dude. And the stock can still do well because people can bid it up, but there is no reason why Cohen's giving anyone confidence to feel excited about GameStop. Dude, there were people that sold legit companies. I mean, I told you about that story. I know a guy who sold 10,000 shares of Palantir at like $18 to go all in on GameStop at like 24. His average was 7 on Palantir. I mean, like, yeah, dude, if I had 10,000 shares at an average of 7, oh my goodness, bro. And I held like, but you sold that for GameStop at 24, GameStop's at 23. It's just like, you have real people that believed GameStop's philosophy. I mean, look, you got to blame yourself at the end of the day. You can't blame Cohen, but I'm just saying Cohen is definitely not giving any confidence to feel excited about investing in this company. Dell right here, that's down about 2%. Tesla is getting back to going green. Robin trying to get back to 104. So it looks like that CBS headline took stocks down for literally 5 minutes. S&P goes green again. And now the market's kind of recovering from that red wick. Pretty incredible, dude. We have that J Powell headline. Bitcoin trying to get to 120. Maybe Bitcoin spiking on the J Powell headline too, because we have, I mean, if it does go through, you have rates that come down, but that generational dip was at 169.70 on NVIDIA. Back to 170. Back to 170. BT broke multi-year resistance. Game, that ticker for Ethereum, that's up 72%. BT is up 15%. SBET is up 21%. And BMNR breaking 50, just below 50, 48.22. That one is also up 20% on the day. Market will dump once if it happens. I think there will be a dump, but I think that dump will be very short-lived. By the way, 43% of you say you entered the market in your 20s, 33% 30s, 16% 40s, and then 7% 50s. I think the market will dump and then it will because again, like algos will dump, but I don't think any of you guys in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to sell any of your major winners because we replaced J Powell as the chair of the Fed. Like, and if you really are, I would be curious to know why. Because I think most of us can handle a 5% drawdown across the market, even 10% drawdown, if J Powell causes it. And most of us, I think, would take advantage of that dip. Like if Tesla goes to 280 because of J Powell being replaced, I'm buying Tesla because whoever is going to be the new Fed chair is going to lower rates and Teslas will become more affordable. By the way, Rigetti's up 19%. Their quantum news today definitely got the market to get excited about that. Yeah, all of you guys, no way I'm selling, no way I'm selling. I mean, like, I would be a bit worried because now Trump and the admin has influence on the Fed. It's not good. Yeah, but are you selling? You can be worried about a lot of stuff about Trump. I agree. I mean, I'm pretty worried that this guy is not putting out the Epstein list. It's very concerning. But from an economic perspective, would you actually sell your stocks because of him getting rid of J Powell? Like, I wouldn't, dude. And a lot of these fund managers that need performance, they would be very happy if people sold their stocks to them because then they would get a dip. Finally. Fund managers have not got a dip in a month. The most was Moody's and a little bit on the Iran-Israel stuff. But outside of that, where have been the buying opportunities? Tesla gave you a little bit of an opportunity when Elon started tweeting about the Epstein stuff. At 280, 275 it got to, but outside of that, there just haven't been opportunities. Google right here, 183, also trying to break back into that 184 level. Speaking of NVIDIA, okay, so I want to share you guys a clip. I want to show you guys a clip last night from a podcast I was listening to about NVIDIA and how people should think potentially selling NVIDIA, which is, something a lot of people have been asking about, given obviously the stock has run aggressively. So let me pull this up right here. This is Josh Brown from The Compound. He's been an NVIDIA bull for the past 10 years. Here's his argument on buying or selling NVIDIA at these levels.
This is the number one question I get, and I understand why. Everyone has made so much money in the stock. It's $4 trillion. I've become very much associated with NVIDIA in the minds of people who watch CNBC.
Could be worse.
Could be worse. And I want to tell you, I've spent the last 10 years saying no. is my answer to that question, or not yet, or I don't know. A lot of times I say I don't know, which is the truth. Or I'll say to people, it depends on your time horizon, or it depends on your risk tolerance, whatever the fuck that means.
And now you're saying short it.
Now, my new answer is sell some. And I still think that I'm not selling. Let me preface this by saying, I think the stock gets into the 200s. It could take 5 years. It could happen 3 weeks from now. I have no way of knowing, obviously. But when you look at the new spate of analyst price targets, and you think about some of the news flow, Meta talking about building Titan clusters, and you think about last earnings quarter, how powerful.
Circle's up 12%. Circle's getting some love. We might have some crypto news, but Circle right now up 12%.
All of the AI spending reaffirmations were coming from Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. I don't think any of those companies are about to get on a conference call in the next 3 weeks and say, we were just kidding. One of the things about AI spending is it doesn't work the way people think it should. It's not like you could spend like $1 trillion amongst 20 companies and be like, all right, we're all set. The spending is required now to maintain the spending that you had already done. So I think when you get that wave of announcements on the earnings calls of the hyperscalers, like it's probably very supportive of NVIDIA's recent rally, at least maintaining these levels. So I'm not saying, yes, you should sell it because I think it's going to be a bad quarter or I know something that anyone else knows. I'm just saying, if you're in the stock for a really long time, it's likely it has far outgrown most or all of your other investments. Even if you also own like a 401k with a balanced portfolio, you have a ton of NVIDIA there too. And so if you're coming up to me, a stranger on the street, and asking if you should sell it, then the answer is probably yes, because you probably own enough of it that you're nervous. It's probably become a huge part of your portfolio. And because what is this business, Michael? The business of owning stocks. It's about regret minimization.
I knew you were going to say that.
But so what will piss you off more? You sell none and the stock has a 30% drawdown, or you sell 20% and the stock doubles.
Yeah, it's obviously it's not even close.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Would you sell NVIDIA? Put a poll in the chat right there. I have some thoughts on this. Would you sell NVIDIA at these levels? By the way, shout out to Hood Retail. It's my birthday, and my wife asked me, what's my ideal morning? I said breakfast in bed with a mitt. It's the best morning. It's the best morning. Shout out to you, man. Thanks for being here on your birthday. Eddie is his actual name. His name is Hood Retail because he is a big retail bull on Hoodie. Again, another stock or another person whose life has been changed by this stock. Absolutely incredible stuff, dude. Congratulations to you. Happy birthday. And happy the wifey is letting you listen to me in the morning. So happy birthday here to Eddie. Robin right here, 103. On NVIDIA, dude, I think Josh Brown is right on a philosophical argument of like, oh, if there's a drawdown, would you rather wish you sold versus like deal with the drawdown? However, if there's a 30% drawdown on NVIDIA for a stupid reason, I would not care if I sold or not. I would want to buy more. And so I think the one nuance to his argument that's missing is that NVIDIA is not expensive. It's not dirt cheap anymore, but it's not expensive. And every anecdotal piece of evidence we're seeing around AI, Zuckerberg spending billions of dollars for talent being one of the biggest ones, just means that this one probably has way more momentum than we think. So the question is, if you think it's going to 200, even in a year, why would you sell at 170, if not by the end of the year? Now, granted, if you're like 20,000 shares NVIDIA, I get it. Like maybe you want to take some profits, that's fine. But like if it is naturally going higher just based on their earnings progression and there's nothing stopping that, I don't know, outside of just like wanting to feel better in your mind and feel safer with your personal portfolio, why you would sell a decent chunk of NVIDIA right here. 75% of you said no. 75% of you said no. And again, the goal of the market is to eventually take profits. It's just like, is anything NVIDIA said, especially after China revenue coming back, the reason to be scared at these levels? Doesn't feel like it to me, but I could understand people that are heavily leveraged against it wanting to take some chips off the table. BMNR, all right, BMNR starting to get a hit, down 15. It was up 23%. Now it's down 15%. Are the other Ethereum treasuries falling? BTBT, that one's still up. SBET was up 25. That one's now up 16. Tesla trying to break 320 again. Palantir trying to break 149. And then Robinhood getting rejected at 103.50. Again, we hit 104. We're not able to hold on, but we are trying to stay at that 103 level. Google, wow, look at that red candle. We just hit 104. Straight red candle down. S&P, straight red candle down. Robinhood, straight red candle down. Palantir, straight red candle down. NVIDIA, straight red candle down. Is this still because of the Powell stuff, dude? This has been wild all day. We just had one of these red candles. We basically recovered while I was playing that clip. You saw NVIDIA gapping up to like almost 171. Then it went all the way back down. Now NVIDIA's trying to gap back up, back to 171. I think it's the Powell stuff. I like it. Feels like the market's trying to figure out how to react to that. Let's see if I can find some coverage on that. That's what it's looking like here. Yeah, Tesla's still holding 319. Feels normal to me. I mean, it definitely is a bit normal. Oh, Trump's about to go live, bro. He's meeting the Crown Prince of Bahrain. He's about to meet this guy. So, oh boy, if he's about to. Okay, so hold on. Is he about to do a press conference with him? Because if he is, he's gonna say some stuff. Yeah, he's about to do a press conference, folks. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. So the question is he going to be asked about Powell, Epstein, tariffs? I mean, he's probably not going to talk about Russia and NATO, which was the main conversation with the NATO Secretary General 2 days ago. So we're probably not going to get any of that stuff. I mean, we might get a little bit of it, but dude, I think it's this Powell stuff. I think it's this. I mean, oh, here we go. White House official says Trump likely to fire Powell soon. Dude, is it happening? Who's this White House official? Who's like, is it some random representative or is it like someone in the administration? Is it really happening, bro? Oh my God. I don't want to see Jay Powell leave like this, bro. Dollar must be dumping right now. Yup, the dollar. Are we below 95? Okay, we're at 98. We are down. This was at 97 2 days ago, so it's actually not as bad, but it is down on the day. The dollar could get dumped pretty aggressively if Jay Powell actually does get fired. Where is the 10-year? 10-year is up a little. It's down on the day, but it's up a little bit from where it was in the morning. The 30-year is above. There you go. The 30-year is green, 5.04. That was at 4.97 this morning, so that one's up. Holy crap, dude. Are we really this would be the first. Let me ask, has the president of the USA ever fired a Fed chair? Google says no, a U.S. president has never fired the Fed chair of the Federal Reserve. While the president appoints the Fed chair, who's then confirmed by the Senate, they do not have the legal authority to remove the chair. Explain to me how the U.S. president could legally fire the Fed chair. Let's see. The U.S. president does not have the power to simply fire the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is designed to be an independent institution. Removal for cause. The law states that members of the Board of Governors, including the chair, can only be removed for cause. For cause means misconduct, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in the office, not policy disagreements. Dude, is Trump going to use Jay Powell's $2.5 billion budget proposal on like refurnishing the Fed headquarters as misconduct? Is that going to be his legal loophole here? Oh, neglect of duty. Okay, but hold on. Neglect of duty. Can I keep talking with this? Yeah, let me keep talking. Explain what you mean by neglect of duty for the Fed chair. I mean, just because you have a policy disagreement doesn't mean Jay Powell's neglecting his duty. By neglect of duty, the legal standard for removing a Fed chair refers to a significant and repeated failure to perform the responsibilities associated with the position, failing to meet job performance standards, not fulfilling legally required responsibilities, gross or repeated failure to perform, potentially related to questionable actions or decisions. Yeah, this is very subjective, bro. This is not 1 + 1 = 2. Jay Powell should be fired. This would be Mr. Trump going to the gym because he would be engaging in a bit of a stretch. I mean, I think he would be engaging in a bit of a stretch if he used neglect of duty. But then again, I mean, legally, there might be a way to do it. there might be a way to do it. Gross or repeated failure means he hasn't cut rates. Yeah, but again, so repeatedly failed to cut rates, but that does not mean he has failed at his job. That is one person's subjective interpretation of Jay Powell not cutting rates to be a failure. Whereas you've got other sides of the aisle that think that Jay Powell shouldn't cut rates, right? So like, how do you reconcile what is a quote unquote repeated failure? Like if Jay Powell didn't attend an FOMC meeting because he was like on vacation or something, that to me is like repeated failure of his obligations, right? That would be neglect of duty. But a disagreement on rate cuts doesn't feel like that's the argument. Damn, bro, they might really be trying to do this. Multiple representatives are tweeting. CBS just said he's getting ready to do it. A White House official, we don't know who this White House official is, says it's going to happen. Trump's about to be live with the Prince of Bahrain. I mean, I would imagine he's going to be asked about it. This has got to be the number one question he's going to be asked about. And we should get some clarity on if that happens. We got the Goldman CEO live. Let's see what he's saying, and then we'll keep going from there.
Thing I'm concerned about, and it's something that I think is going to get a lot of attention as we continue to spend and grow our deficit, which is the direction of travel at this point.
I mean, speaking of rates, you've been for last year or so, at least, higher for longer camp, and Fed for the better part of the year has been on hold. So that's been right. What do you think happens next?
Well, you know, the trajectory here, you know, you're asking what happens next. You're talking about in 2025.
You think we'll get a few cuts?
I think there's a reasonable chance we get a cut or two, but not certain. And, you know, I think the market is absorbing the trade policy. But on the call, I specifically said, and I think this is the best way to frame it, you know, even if we have base tariffs, some special industry tariffs, we get a bunch of these trade deals. The trade deals are yet to materialize significantly. And we don't actually know the impact, you know, of 10% base tariffs and these specialized tariffs on economic growth. We have to watch closely. So it seems like inflation is on the right trajectory. I think we could get a cut or two, given where term rates are at the moment. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, still uncertain. Do you worry about Fed independence in this environment where there's a lot of political pressure on Fed Chair Powell?
I think central bank independence, not just here in the United States, but around the world, has served us incredibly well. I think it's important. I think my comments here on Fed independence are with respect to monetary policy. I think regulation and supervision are different. But with respect to monetary policy, I think central bank independence, Fed independence is very important, and it's something we should fight to preserve.
How do you feel about international right now?
AKA, don't fire Powell. That's basically what Goldman CEO is saying.
Have you been impressed with Europe's turn? Do you think some of those shifts are long-lasting, either on their spending or fiscal discipline, debt breaks?
The direction of travel is definitely positive. I think a more fiscally stimulative Europe, a Europe that's investing more in its defense and in its industry and infrastructure, is good for growth in the world. The question is, and I don't know if you saw, but we had our board in Paris at the end of June, and I put an op-ed, into one of the local publications in Paris. Can the nations of the European Union get together and actually execute on the things they need to do to bring down barriers, allow investment, act as a constructive economic union, as opposed to, a collection of, individual provincial states? And, I think the jury's out on that, but the opportunity set is better. I see more institutional capital interested, but still questions on whether or not they can execute and they can really move the ball.
Yeah, they got to follow the Draghi report. You mentioned regulation and supervision for the Fed. That's another hot topic, and it's why your stock and some of the financial stocks have been big winners so far. What are you expecting as far as actual deregulation, and how would it impact your business?
Yeah, I'll touch on that, but I can't resist, since you said it, that our stock has been a big winner.
Yes.
Because of deregulation. There's no question the regulatory environment's a factor, but one of the things we're really proud of is that when we look over the last 7 or 8 years, we have significantly grown the firm and executed on a strategy to grow the firm, which has significantly grown the revenues and the earnings of the firm, which therefore has grown the market cap of the firm. Now, I think the multiples that all the large financials are getting are improved. And the reason that they're improved, there's still a big discount to the market multiple, but the reason they're improved, one of the reasons they're improved is because the regulatory environment is improving. And it's improving after a very harsh swing in the other direction over the last 4 years. I think there are 4 big buckets of focus around regulatory policy that are going to get a lot of attention in the next 6 months. 3 of them are really around capital, and this includes ESLR, the leverage ratio, which, there's a proposal that's moving forward, which is quite constructive in allowing capital to be recycled into the system to support the system. The second is GSIB, and GSIB was supposed to be calibrated for growth in the economy, growth in markets, but it hasn't been. And if you look at the growth in large bank capital over the last 7, 8 years, GSIB has been a very significant piece of that growth. And so how do we recalibrate GSIB to account for growth is a second big bucket that can create capital relief. And the third is the CCAR process, the stress testing process, and creating a better process with more transparency around it. I think the direction of travel on all 3 of these things are constructive. And I think the big thing that's getting asked about, which is appropriate, is 15 years after Dodd-Frank. We've learned a lot. We want the right answers. We want a transparent, clear capital regime where people can plan, investors have transparency, and they understand, so that we can have the most efficient capital deployment into markets to drive economic growth. And I think there's a good chance we make progress on that. The 4th bucket is regulation and supervision, kind of the supervisory process, which has been quite burdensome without a real focus on safety and soundness. And I think that pendulum is going to swing back. And what that does is it frees up resources to invest in growth. And I think that's also constructive.
And that's really good for the financials. And that's why the street has been happy, at least from that component of the big, beautiful bill, from a deregulatory perspective. We are still waiting for Trump to go live. He is not live yet. When he does go live, I imagine we're going to see what he says about Powell. But that's what the street's reacting to. S&P is now actually holding some of its red. It's rebounded a little bit from 619 to 621, but still red on the day. Robinhood got hit at 103, Palantir 148, and then Tessie 319. From good afternoon to goodbye, bro. Holy. This is wild. Absolutely wild. I mean, dude. Yeah, I think dips will be bought if we see them. I think dips will be bought. I will get to Trump as soon as he's live. It should be in like probably 15 minutes, maybe even less than that, to be honest. I think is the White House stream up? Yeah, the White House stream is up, so they will be starting in a bit. And we get to see what Trump says. We get to see what Trump says. Yeah, 0.5% on the S&P is not wild. What's wild to me is the fact that, like, they are seriously considering getting rid of this guy. Yeah, this could protect some covered calls potentially. I mean, you're too excited for this? I don't think so, bro. If they're actually firing the head of the Federal Reserve, that has never happened in history. I mean, like, I don't know how the stock market's going to react, but just as a market participant, as a student of the market, that would be crazy, bro. We've never seen that ever. No matter how much, I mean, dude, Biden didn't love Powell either. And Powell was raising rates pretty aggressively when Biden was president, and Elizabeth Warren, AOC, all the Democrats were going after him, but they didn't fire him. Granted, with Trump, we have 10 trillion of debt that we have to refinance, partly because Biden, didn't really, and Trump 1.0, Congress didn't really allow us to get in more long-term maturities. And so we ended up having so much short-term debt that Trump kind of has no choice but either to refinance at ridiculous rates or get Powell to cut. And if Powell's not going to cut, maybe he thinks I have no choice but to fire this guy. Because how can we refinance our debt at 5%? Like, it's just too much. Oh, how is gold doing? We didn't look at gold. Gold's up 1%. All right, gold's not going crazy, but there's that spike right there about 20 minutes ago. That is because it seems like there's J-Pow news. Okay, one thing. Yeah, I see this comment right here in the chat that this could be one argument. Trump potentially. Wow, New York Times, Trump has drafted a letter to fire the Fed chair. Wow. Holy crap, dude. Okay, one argument here is that Trump is trying to distract from Epstein. That could be another argument. Trump is trying to distract from, I mean, firing the federal chair is going to be news for a while. You're going to get a lot of the media focus on that over Epstein. That could be an argument. Granted, Trump's been thinking of doing this for a long time. So I think he's been wanting to fire him for a while, and now it's just finally getting to the point where he's going to do it. But it also could be strategic for him to not have to talk about Epstein anymore and shift the media attention. Can he actually fire him? We have no idea, dude. Legally, we just saw it on Google. There is no legal precedent outside of gross misconduct or neglect of duty, which I don't know how you justify Trump as Jay Powell is engaging him. Pounce right here, 149, Robinhood 102. And if you can't justify it, then I don't know legally how they do it, dude. I have no idea. Doug says, I have 120K in cash. Bring me the dip. Oh, man. I mean, look, if they take Hood back to 80 or 70 on the, I just don't think it feels too aggressive because of Jay Powell. It's big news, but it's not Hood goes down 30% type of news. Or S&P goes down 10% type of news. That's 5%, yeah. Realistically, 2% maybe. 5% would be pretty aggressive in this type of a market. But I think that dip gets bought up. Bloomberg reporting it. Okay, let me go to Bloomberg TV. Let me see if we can get some live coverage on this. Trump is not live yet. Once he goes live, I will switch over and we'll see how they're talking about it as well. Okay, let me pull over to Bloomberg. Dude, what a day. Wednesday, July 16th. Is this the day that Trump ends up officially trying to engage in the process of firing a sitting Fed chair? Okay, so Bloomberg's talking about XAI. Let me see. They do have the article up, though. Oh, they have a video. Let me see if I can get a video here. Let me see. Goodness, dude, that's a big deal. Oh, is Trump live? No, Trump's not live yet. Okay, he's not live yet. Yeah, here we go. All right, let's get some of this coverage on it right here. Let me see. Let's see. ASML still down 11% on the day.
I mean, obviously, he thinks that interest rates should be much, much lower. I mean, you look at the economy, I'm not convinced that that's true, right? Like, I think that there are political reasons why the president wants it lowered. But from an economic standpoint, interest rates actually look pretty appropriate to me. I have my model has the neutral Fed funds rate at around 4%, maybe 3.75 to 4%. So, 25 or 50 basis points of rate cuts would get us right there. So we're very close to neutral, as far as I'm concerned, and cutting all the way down to say 3% or 2% would risk the potential for faster growth and therefore higher inflation overall, which is one of the things that the market's pricing for. And that's why once the recent headlines hit the Bloomberg terminal on the president's possible action, you've seen the market move, and that's just going to get bigger. So you saw 30-year yields sell off a few basis.
Oval Office with a few House Republicans, which is why, as we saw on X yesterday, some of the House Republicans saying they're hearing that they're firing Fed Chair Powell. First of all, there's a legal question here, right? And Powell himself has pointed to this before, that he cannot be fired without cause. So does this, renovation issue that they brought up, does that count as cause? Who knows, right? That's one issue. The other issue, of course, is confidence and markets, and something that David was talking about, and questions about Fed independence. And would it really be, good for stability in things like U.S. assets, U.S. treasuries, and the U.S. dollar if the president is trying to fire a Fed chair and put in place someone that is not independent? We know the history of not independent central banks I mean, they don't have control over inflation.
There are some that exist right now on planet Earth. And of course, we know the Fed has also asked their own inspector general to look into
They have nothing to hide
this renovation
on the
of
renovation.
headquarters and what the chair told Congress in recent weeks.
Yeah, not great. Let's see what President Trump actually does, to David's point.
Right. When we come back this morning, the CEO of Aura Minerals is with.
Wild, bro. This is kind of crazy. We might all get to live through a president firing the Fed chair. We got to see NVIDIA at 4 trillion, which is, we still at 4 trillion? Yeah, we're still healthily above 4 trillion, 163.93. If we get to that level, we're below 4 trillion, but we're below 170. S&P now is actually going red, down 0.5%, more than 0.5%. That's like a real candle. Palantir red candle, Tesla red candle, Robinhood red candle, Google red candle. You get a red candle. You get a red candle. Salesforce, guess what? You get a red candle. Apple, hey, looks like you should become a banana because your red candles are not that appealing, but you get a red candle. SMCI 5156, 3%. Red candle. Bitcoin, you got a red candle. You're still holding 118, but you're holding a red candle. The 10-year probably getting a green candle, spiking. 10 years getting ready to spike. It's unchanged at 4.489. It was red. That one could be getting ready to spike, and 30-year is obviously spiking right here. 5.07 on this Powell news. So the VIX is pissed, but the VIX is not. It's still under 20, dude. The VIX is up 8%, but we're still under 20, which is pretty remarkable, dude. The fact that we are not above 20 on this thing yet, which means volatility. I mean, obviously, I think when Trump actually announces it, maybe the VIX spikes up. But it's not like it's spiking just based on the rumors yet. We need the official announcement to see it play out. What are we buying on the dip? Everything. We're buying, it's the David Tepper, buy everything. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what he did. David Tepper said that back in 2010. He came on CNBC. This is the clip for those that haven't seen it. This was 2 years after the financial crisis, and he said it's time to buy everything.
The economy is going to get better by itself in the next 3 months. And what assets are going to do well? You can guess the assets are going to do well. Stocks are going to do well. Bonds won't do so well. Gold won't do as well. Or the economy is not going to pick up in the next 3 months, and the Fed's going to come in with QE, right? Then what's going to do well? Everything in the near term. Everything. The economy, I'm not sure which way it is right now. I think I'm in with QE, right? Then what's going to do well? Everything in the near term. Everything. The economy, I'm not sure which way it is right now. I think it's getting better. I'm not absolutely sure. Okay. And if it's not getting better, the market can go down a little bit. What does that mean? You know, can it go down to 1,100? Sure, it can. Can it go down to 1,000? No, I don't believe that. I mean, then it can. I'll tell you what, we'll be 100% equities. Up to the point the Fed comes in with money, the stock market can go down a little bit, but not that much because I got to put. You got to level put, especially when the government's issuing it. So I can't go down that much. It doesn't mean I go up to that point, but after that, I'm going up. Okay. So what do? I got to buy. But what you need is the economy to get going again. Okay. So I don't know, the long term, well, if the Fed does quantitative easing for the next 5 years, that's not good. But if the Fed does quantitative, if it doesn't get better on its own, right? We're talking about that scenario. Yep. If it doesn't get better on its own, the Fed has to do quantitative easing for a bit of time. No big deal. But if it was a continuous thing, it wouldn't be good. I'm the animal at the head of the pack.
You try.
Okay.
Yeah.
I generally am. Yeah. And like I said, I either get eaten or I get the good grass. Okay. So my animal spirit, you guys talk about it, is awakened. If historically I can look behind me and I see, well, there's other animals following me. They don't necessarily follow me that fast. Sometimes there's no other animals around when we do things.
Now, granted, this is not, 2010 after 2008 was a different time than 2025 being the third year of a massive bull market. So buying everything after the entire economy collapse is different than buying everything on a 2% dip because of Powell getting fired. But if Powell getting fired creates a much bigger dip than 2%, I mean, dude, rates are coming down. I think you buy. I think the independence from a legal and constitutional perspective of the Fed, the courts can deal with that. But that does not deal with the fact that if he's actually replaced and rates are coming down outside of massive inflation, that could be the result of that, which maybe it is, maybe it's not. We're going higher. We're going much higher if that happens. Meta falling below 700. There she goes. It hit just below 700, 699.27. A little bit above right there, but Meta right there down 1.3%. Grab's actually holding 5, which is Grab usually would be tanking if the broader market's tanking. So the fact that Grab's holding 5 is nice to see. But we are dead. Or we are seeing some of these candles go dead as they come further red down. Yeah, I'll link this David Tepper clip. By the way, the funny thing about David Tepper is he came on CNBC in 2023 and he said to buy everything in China. He said to buy everything. And he was right. I mean, if Baba was at freaking $50. So it's almost the same thing he did back in 2010 in the context of China. But this time it's just a question of, you know, how aggressive does it become if we actually do get a Fed chair that gets fired? Now, again, Meta below 700 is not the dip. Meta at like 650 is the dip. All right, put this in the chat. Put your price in the chat on what is the dip to you. Put your favorite stock that you would buy first and what is the dip. What is the dip? By the way, Circle somehow in the midst of all this goes green. 220. My goodness. Circle's acting as the hedge against Powell getting fired. But what stock and what price is the dip? NVIDIA 80. Okay, I think that's a little too aggressive. I think NVIDIA 140-ish is my dip. SoFi 17, I think that's reasonable. Bitcoin 99, I think that's reasonable. Hood 40, I think is too aggressive. Hood 75-ish would be my answer. Tesla 200, I think too aggressive. Tesla 270 would be my answer. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but those are the numbers at least I would begin nibbling at, if not going heavier at. AMD 145, I think that's reasonable. Rocket Lab 30, I think that's reasonable. Rocket Lab, I think 33-ish, 34. Tesla 280, I think that makes sense. GitLab 38, I think that's fair. Hood 60, I think that's fair. Google 155. Yeah, I feel like Google 165-ish too. Now that we're at 185 is not crazy, but Google one. It's just a question of how bad does it get? Obviously, it can feel like stocks have no bottom, right? The bottom's falling out when shit really hits the fan, which is what happened in April. But eventually at 4,800, the S&P was like, all right, enough is enough. Or the market was like, enough is enough, and people bought. Oh, so it really helped that Trump delayed the tariffs, and he told us to buy stocks. But still, I don't know if we get as juicy of a discount on some of these names just based on Powell getting fired. Trump is not live yet. Trump is not live yet. Let's get a little bit more coverage on this Federal Reserve stuff. But, oh no, we just looked at it. Yeah, we just pulled it up. We looked at that CNBC clip. So we'll try to get some more coverage from the New York Times and Bloomberg. New York Times is reporting that Trump has officially drafted a letter and he's getting ready to send it. Palantir below 100. I think Palantir got to 129. I'm thinking 120s is more of the dip, but you know, we'll see how bad it gets if it does get that bad. Again, we're kind of throwing out these fantasy numbers, dude, on some of these stocks to get to those levels. And maybe they happen, maybe they don't, but it's all about if he actually gets fired when it comes to J-Pound. Nubank at 10. I don't think that's crazy. BMNR below 10. I don't know if it gets that low. The lowest it got to was 37. I think BMNR around 30 would be my dip from these levels. It really depends on if Ethereum drops. Ethereum, I would say like 2750 would be a really nice level. I don't know if we get there that easily now that we're at 3,200, but that would be my level. Again, these are perceived levels on if we get a dramatic dip, what would be your buy-in price? I'm not saying these levels are going to happen. I quite frankly think it's a bit aggressive to even say, you know, a 5% drawdown, much less a 15% drawdown would happen. But if it were, right? The question is, what price would you say, all right, I've got some cash on the sidelines. I'm ready to buy in either into a new name or to DCA into one of your favorite names if we see that. MicroStrategy below 350. Yeah, Grab below 450 would be, I would buy a lot of Grab if we get below 450. Tesla 250, I would love that as well if we actually get there. Duolingo gives you a dip every day. You don't need to worry about Trump. I mean, goodness gracious, bro. What a disgusting pick in my portfolio, dude. What a horrible pick, dude. Like anything could have been better than freaking Duolingo. And I feel like I caused it because then after I picked it, I go on a rant for the next freaking 2 weeks about why languages are irrelevant to learn. And it just caused so much pain. Oscar at 10. Well, Oscar, I think I would even get interested if Oscar gets to 10, bro. Like Oscar at 14, I think is cheap. I don't know enough about healthcare, but if it's at 10, I feel like I buy 1,000 shares at 10 and then try to figure out what's going on with healthcare. Hood 70, Hood 80, I agree. Oracle 175. Yeah, Oracle was basically 175 before earnings. So I agree. 175 would be a great level if we get there. Where's Weeble? Where's this piece of shit? Where's Weeble? 12.19. Got my covered calls on it. I've got my covered calls. Amid had the best draft into the last 3 picks. Dude, Visa, Duolingo, and Apple. Just like, I think my portfolio could have been way better if I just didn't pick those 3, dude. Visa, I didn't know about this whole circle nonsense and stable coins. Apple, I was trying to be cute and say, okay, it's going to be a contrarian bet. And I still kind of do think it's going to be a contrarian bet, but my goodness, have they ruined confidence in investors. And then Duolingo was just stupid. That one was just stupid. So, whatever. We got a year left. Let's see if they can maintain some of their momentum. Amazon 195. Yeah, dude. If Amazon gets below 200, I'm a buyer. Bezos did sell 1.5 billion yesterday of stock, and then the Amazon Project Kuiper broadband connectivity Starlink competitor is now using SpaceX satellites, which I didn't even know Amazon was working on broadband internet. Like I had no idea they were working on that. Apparently they are, because Amazon's working on everything. So that's another part to their business that is pretty exciting. And so if it goes below 200, I definitely would personally take advantage of that. I think gold is being manipulated by the dollar. I personally think they're getting ready for the biggest gold dump ever. Well, how much is gold up year to date? Gold is still doing pretty well. I think it's up, 20% this year? 25%. I mean, the dollar, absolutely the dollar feels manipulated, but I think the reason the dollar is tanking so much is because of the uncertainty around tariffs. And I think when we do get certainty, there is a world where we get certainty about tariffs. We get more certainty about what's going on from a geopolitical perspective in Russia, Ukraine, more certainty around who the hell the next Fed chair is going to be. Although the dollar might show some weakness as it's showing right now, we might get a gold dump and a resurgence of people buying the dollar. The ironic thing is a trade deficit actually helps the dollar because there's more dollars in circulation, so people buy more dollars. So if we do close off the deficit with at least some of our greatest partners, and we wouldn't ever close it fully, but let's say significantly reduce it, it is kind of bearish dollar to an extent. But I don't think that means the dollar necessarily needs to tank into the low 90s. Garland of Truth, thank you for the $10 super chat. That is the Fed gets fired and we get a rally of 10%. That's a good question. Let's do that on the poll. Let's do that question. By the way, 77% of you said you're not taking profits on NVIDIA. The question is, if Jay Powell gets fired, do we dump or pump? Immediately when it comes out, dump or pump? What do you think? You got to pick one. Do we dump or pump? I mean, low key, who knows, bro? What if we pump? We've been saying dump. What if we pump? Is Trump live? Let me see. Trump is live. All right, here we go. Let me pull this up. Trump is live. He's going to be talking for a bit, and then we're going to see questions, and they likely will be asked about Powell.
With Bahrain over the years, and has been a fantastic ally. And anything they needed, we helped them, and anything we needed, they helped us. And we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, including the most perfect military maneuver that anybody's seen probably in 50 years, which took place a few weeks ago, and Iran knocked out their entire potential nuclear capacity. And it was obliterated. I used that term. They said, well, maybe that's too much. I said, no, it turned out it was more than obliterated. They can't go back. And we're just really going to talk about some things, including trade. We're going to be discussing trade. We do a lot of trading with Bahrain. And we're going to have lunch after this, but we'll take some questions. At first, I'd like to ask the Crown Prince to say a couple of words. And he also has a father who's living and well and doing fantastically, as I understand it.
He is.
And somebody who's respected all over the Middle East and all over the world. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, one and all. It is indeed a great honor to be here on this fine morning to put into action the relationship that exists between our two countries. We will be discussing security issues, we'll be discussing trade and investment, which is very important. We're very happy to be announcing $17 billion worth of deals that are coming to the United States. And this is real. This isn't.
It's real money.
These aren't fake deals. These are real deals.
They don't have to borrow the money.
We don't have to borrow it. It's coming in. And it only builds upon a legacy that we're very proud of. We have had a relationship in the civil side between our two countries since 1893 and formally since 1948. So may it long continue, and we look forward to many, many more years of productive partnership. Thank you, Mr. President.
We will have
You
that.
honor us.
We will have that indeed. Many good years. And I'd say right now is your top year. And we appreciate the investment. It's a great, we left, as you know, Saudi Arabia. We were just there in Saudi Arabia, and Qatar was so great. League was great. We had UAE, and we had a couple of other visits, but all great places. And we left with $5.1 trillion of investment. And they all want to be investing in the United States. We have, I think we have over $16 trillion of investment coming in, which is a record. And we're only a little bit into the year. And let's say the first 2 months, I sort of took it easy because we had to fix up the Oval Office. I had to devote my time to fixing it up. But now we had to fix up our country. So we have, I think everyone is saying we have the hottest country now anywhere in the world. We were dead a year ago. We are a dead country. And now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And it's a great honor to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any questions?
Any comments on the developments in Syria at the moment?
Well, I can comment. I think I'll ask Marco to say a few words on Syria.
Yeah, it's complicated. Obviously, these are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the southwest of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side. So we've been engaged with them all morning long and all night long with both sides, and we think we're on our way towards a real de-escalation and then hopefully get back on track in helping Syria build a country and arriving at a situation there in the Middle East is far more stable. So in the next few hours, we hope to see some real progress to end what you've been seeing over the last couple hours.
Mr. President Jerome Powell, do you have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell? And what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in the short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut them for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money. And we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But
Trump appointed him in 2017. Trump appointed Powell.
They did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun. And it's a shame. But the biggest cost overrun is the cost overrun for interest rates, because we should be paying 3 points lower and we would save $1 trillion a year in interest if that were the case. And all it is the stroke of a pen. And that goes for his board too, because his board is not doing the job, because they should try and rein this guy in. So he's doing a lousy job, but no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so. And we'll pick somebody that's good, and we'll pick somebody. I just want a fair job. We want to see lower interest rates. Our country deserves it. We're making a lot of money. We're doing great as a country. We have no inflation, record stock market, record business, record everything. Everything's a record now. We had the worst inflation in history under Biden, and now we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job, and we should have the interest rates cut.
So you're saying the other day that Scott Bessent, you're so happy with him at Treasury that he's not your top option to replace Jerome Powell whenever that may be, whenever you decide what you want to do with him.
Scott's doing a very good job. I'm very happy with Scott.
Is Kevin Hassett on the top of your list?
Kevin, somebody would consider. Kevin is fantastic too. We have a lot of good people for that job. It's not a tough job, to be honest. Assuming you're smart, it's not a tough job. If you're a dummy, then I guess it's a tough job. But it might be one of the easiest jobs I've ever seen. And now on top of it, he's building a close to $3 billion little nest egg for himself. He's not doing the right job. We should be saving $1 trillion a year in interest. When he talks about cost, we should be saving. Think of it, $1 trillion a year. Add that with the tariffs and everything else. But he just doesn't want. He's a knucklehead. But we'll see how that. We'll see how he's listening to this. That's a strange conversation. But we like to say it like it is. But we have a lot of people that want that job very badly. And I'm only interested in low interest people, frankly, because you don't need. I know. So they had the 71 different economists and people experts that they picked about a month ago. I was the only one, along with one person from maybe the Wharton School of Finance. The two of us got it right. 69 people, including Powell, got it wrong. And he wants to hire thousands of new people to help him decide where we're going in the future. It only takes one good mind. It doesn't take 5,000 good minds. So they're expanding the Fed. It's the dumbest thing I've heard of. But it's very autonomous.
Just to follow up on that, sir, are you immediately ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell?
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the two.
He just said it's highly unlikely. That should be bullish.
$2.7 billion renovation. This is a renovation. How do you spend $2.7 billion? And he didn't have proper clearance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going on. So there could be something to that, but I think he's not doing a good job. He's got a very easy job to do. You know what he has to do? Lower interest rates.
Decide that you are going to fire him? Have you drafted a letter?
I haven't drafted a letter.
So you didn't show a letter to Republican lawmakers last night?
No, I talked about the concept of fire him. I said, what do you think?
Boom. That's the confirmation. Trump says he talked to lawmakers last night, Republican lawmakers, on if he should fire Powell. He's denying drafting a letter, but he's saying he asked Republicans on if he should do it or not.
Almost every one of them said I should. But I'm more conservative than they are. We talked about it. In fact, we had 11 of the 12 people here yesterday, for a very big bill having to do with crypto, et cetera, and other things. And all of the votes are going with us, every single vote. But during the conversation, when we were talking about it, I asked, what would you do about that? They all said we'd fire him.
Mr. President, thank you for taking my question, sir. You were in Pennsylvania yesterday. You unveiled 9.
Okay, we'll get back to that, but we got some stuff to analyze, folks. So Trump said a variety of things here. Markets kind of recovering, but not really going super green, at least on the index. Palantir right here back to 150. Robinhood trying to get back to 103. NVDA is back above 170. Trump said the following things. Number one, he has not drafted a letter to fire Jay Powell. He could be lying about that, but if we take him at his word, he's saying he didn't. Number two, he is confirming reports from Bloomberg that he spoke to Republican officials, lawmakers, on if he should fire Powell. So that's accurate. He is also confirming reports from Bloomberg that all the Republican lawmakers were essentially on his side, right? Agreeing that he should fire him. So that's accurate. But what he just said is, quote unquote, I am more conservative than the lawmakers, AKA they want me to fire him, but essentially he's saying he's not going to fire him. And then when he was point blank asked, are you ruling out the possibility of firing him? He said, no, but it's highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Now, maybe, and I agree with one of you in the chat, which was a great comment. One of you said they might be testing the idea to see how the market reacts. And if there's not that much pain, they might actually go through with it. And they did that with the tariffs, right? They did that, and then they had Liberation Day. Obviously, it didn't work out in their favor, and then they reversed it, and then we had the pause, all that stuff. So that could be happening. Or flat out, they're not going to fire him, but they want the pressure of acting as if they were going to fire him to be on Jay Powell so that he guarantees us a September cut, which right now is not guaranteed. September Fed future probabilities are 59%. That's a little bit higher than this morning, but it's down from 95% 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, there is a variety of pieces to this puzzle, but if I had to bet right now, I would say he's not firing Powell, even though he did bring up the $2.5 billion renovation as like one of those reasons for why he thinks Powell is, I mean, he didn't say neglect, but probably acting in a way that could result in some neglect because he's wasting too much money on the Fed building. I don't think that's enough of a reason to fire him. And I don't think Trump believes that's enough of a reason to fire him either, which is why Trump said it's highly unlikely. So that's what we got. Markets kind of recovering. S&P still red. It's not at 618 anymore. Tesla 319, Palantir 150, NVIDIA 170. If the dip was 5 minutes before Trump just said what he said, then that was your dip, if that's the case.
$92 billion worth of investments. One of those jumped out, though, $15 billion in Homer City to build largest natural gas power plant ever. I was at the rally where you told Homer City residents you would not forget them when the biggest coal plant in Pennsylvania closed down. You delivered for them yesterday. What message do you have to those residents?
Well, I'm happy. Homer City, I was there and I said, I'm going to produce something, I don't know what, because they had shut down this massive coal plant, one of the biggest in the country. And it was just purchased by the gentleman that you met yesterday, a very substantial man. I don't know if he's maybe not as substantial as you, I'm not sure, but he's pretty substantial. You know who I'm talking about. And they're going to spend billions of dollars on rebuilding it. And it's going to be the largest plant of its kind in the world, I believe, actually in the world. And it's going to be great. So we really fulfilled that promise to Homer City. But it's dependent.
Let's get a bit more coverage on the Powell stuff, and then we'll keep going from there.
Fire Jerome Powell soon. The backstory there was he had been meeting in the Oval Office with a dozen Republican lawmakers late yesterday. He asked them, he floated the idea about firing Powell. He said now nearly all of them approved it, and the senior White House official said the president then said he was indicating he was likely to do it soon. Now, there was always a caution around that nothing was finalized. The decision could always change. It might not happen, and it might not necessarily be imminent. But then just there, Frank, we were listening to the president sort of downplay this reporting. He was saying that, yes, he's very concerned about Powell, and he thinks that he's too late on interest rates, but he said, quote, no, we're not planning on doing anything with regards to firing him. He was then asked whether he was completely ruling out the idea of firing the Fed chair. And the president replied, quote, I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. He went on to say he thinks it's possible there's fraud involved in that ongoing renovation of the Federal Reserve building downtown. So here we have it, Frank. At the latest is that while we did have this reporting from a senior White House official saying the president was likely to go through with the firing, now the president saying he's not thinking about doing it, though he's not also completely ruling it out. The final thing I would say is that no official comment from the Federal Reserve on this. But Frank, as you know, Chair Powell has been very consistent for the last 6 or 8 months or so that he is planning to finish out his term no matter what happens. Just as a reminder to our viewers, he was asked in November by a reporter whether he would step down if President Trump asked him to. Powell replied no, and he was asked in that same press conference whether he felt that the president had the legal authority to either fire or demote him, and at the time Powell replied, not permitted under the law. Frank.
I'm Megan Casella live in D.C. Great reporting on this in the last hour. Just some wild swing.
We'll get some more coverage on that. So, I mean, there's Pound to right, by the way, 150.3. SBET getting some love as well. Look at that, 24% on the day. So the Ethereum Treasury is getting some momentum. BMNR at 47. And where's Bitcoin? Are we at 119 still? We're at 118.9. I think there's some nuances to this. I mean, Trump is confirming some things, denying some other things. And then he's kind of hinting that he doesn't really want to fire him, but he doesn't hate the idea of it. He's giving us the analysis of the Republican lawmakers that said they would be all for firing him. And I'm sure Trump asked, is there a legal way for us to do this? I mean, I don't think they were just having a conversation about firing him, but rather having a conversation of if we went through with this, like, would there be a foundation that we could justify in front of the Supreme Court if it got that bad? But based on what he said, it doesn't look like he wants to fire them. I mean, he literally said it's highly unlikely. If you're the market and you're moving on what the president says, if he says it's highly unlikely, you kind of take out that risk. Yeah, you're right. He said highly unlikely. I mean, okay, either he's lying or he's straight up saying it's highly unlikely. And by the way, the reason why it's not as like, okay, just believe Trump, like it's highly unlikely, which I think that's how the market's reacting right now, is that other officials in the White House or in the Republican Party, whether they're representatives or the director of Fannie and Freddie, they came out last night and said Powell will be fired. And maybe they're saying it with Trump to create pressure on Powell, or they genuinely believe he's going to be fired. And maybe Trump kind of went the opposite of what everyone was talking about last night by saying it's highly unlikely. So there's just a lot of back and forth. No one fully knows, but the market, if they have to take Trump at his word, instead of these Republican lawmakers that were tweeting last night, then you got to believe there is no risk to Powell being fired if Trump just said it's highly unlikely they're going to be fired. Now, he did mention that renovation, and he said that could be something that's not the best. Rock Lab right here, 46. Wow, Rock Lab trying to go for 47, folks. Let me check resistance. She's trying to go for 47. But I don't think he's going to use that renovation thing as justification. Yeah, it kind of felt like a warning shot, right? It kind of felt like a warning shot. It kind of felt like him just saying, hey, Jay Powell, just know that I'm thinking really hard about if we should fire you or not. You know, Jay Powell's listening, and maybe Jay Powell will take that seriously. Maybe he won't care, but that's what it kind of felt like more than anything. And maybe Trump wanted the media and all these of Republican officials to come out and tweet this stuff because it was part of the broader plan to just like make Jay Powell feel the pressure. But he, to calm the markets down, would not actually say he's going to fire him because then, you know, who knows how the markets will react. Rocket Lab 47 resistance, 12,000 shares. 12,000 shares on Rocket Lab to get to 47. Let's get a little bit more coverage on that, and then we will keep going from there.
As we show that chart, it would resume the decline that we've seen so far year to date, down 9%. Then the other trouble spot would be in the long end of the curve. You watch the 30-year spiked up to 5.07 during the news that potentially he was going to fire him. 515 is the high over the last 52 weeks. Those would be the two trouble spots. However, I will say this. I have said this over the last 4 weeks consistently. September 17th, my expectation is that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates. The president doesn't have to do this. He's going to get what he wants. On September 17th, in the congressional testimony, Chairman Powell identified 2 months worth of inflation data that was important to him. We've got 1 month already. It's not showing up to the degree of which would require him
not to cut rates September 17th. I believe they will.
Let's talk to this thesis for a second, Joe, and I want to get to Surratt and Weiss in just a second. So you're saying in the July meeting, there's a dovish tone that leads us to that cut coming in September?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, just in all fairness, the president not only does he want cuts, he wants the short-term borrowing rate to go down. That could also be achieved somewhat by some signaling from the Fed that they're on the path to cutting rates as soon as September.
They could do that signaling. I'm not sure that you're going to get that signaling because you still want the July CPI reading, which will be reported in August. I think the chairman is going to want the benefit of that data as well. But I believe after that, it is going to show that the inflation is not spiking to the degree at which the chairman feared that it would. And I think on September 17th, they will be cutting rates.
All right.
This is why Donnie T is the content in chief. I mean, he's literally taken us on a roller coaster for the past hour and a half. I mean, like, literally taking us up and down. Markets are like, okay, we kind of want to sell off because firing Powell wouldn't be good, but then he says it's highly unlikely, but then he says we're looking into it. Then he says they didn't draft a letter, but I talked to Republican lawmakers. I mean, it is content 24/7 by Donnie T on trying to figure out how to navigate these markets. S&P not fully recovered yet, but basically flat. It did have a nasty red candle down to 618, lowest it's been in a couple of days. So that one's back to 621. NVIDIA back over 170. NVIDIA's been holding 170 like a champ, dude. Barely touched 168, 169 over the past couple of days. Pound here holding 150. We got to 150 yesterday. 150.6 is the all-time high. And then Robinhood, hopefully we can get back to 104 today, but we got there, and I think she wants to get back 102.91. I'm just happy it's above 100 and not stuck at that 99, 98 level. And then SBET and all the Ethereum treasuries, they've been doing great. SBET right here at 36.18. That is green. Rocket Lab again, you got 12,000 shares on Rocket Lab waiting for 47. On SBET, 37 resistance is 37 resistance is 10,000 shares, 10,067. 10,000 shares on SBET. SBET having a great day, dude. Incredible. Outperforming all the other Ethereum treasuries, and probably because of Ethereum right here at 32.50. BMNR as well, up about 20% of the day. What a day. What a freaking day, folks. All right. I think that's it for me. I think that's it for me on the market open. 3 hours and 30 minutes. It is never a boring day covering these markets. My goodness. Oh, where's Pew Pew? Where's Pew Pew? Pew Pew is down 22% on its debut in the markets. Pew is down. Yeah, and Circle as well. So yesterday, the crypto legislation didn't get passed. The reasoning for it was not because Republicans don't believe in it. It was because they wanted the votes to get done with 3 bills at once versus 2 bills and then 1 bill separately. So it was kind of like a logistical hurdle that they cited as the main reason. I'm sure there's some Republicans that didn't agree with it fully, but I think that crypto legislation will get passed. That's probably why Trump was talking to Republican lawmakers yesterday to try to get them to get their shit together to make sure we can get that crypto stuff passed. And I think Ethereum might be front running that right here at 32.50 before it does get passed. We saw Bitcoin front run it over the weekend. And that would be good for Robinhood, Coinbase, MicroStrategy. Where's Coinbase? Coinbase right here, almost at 400, hit 401 today again. And then MSTR, 453. MSTR is up 2.5. Robinhood, 102.8. That's at 3.2. Tesla, 319, just below 320. NVIDIA, 170. S&P, 621. AMD, 154. SoFi, 2120. Googs, 183. NVIDIA, 170. And then Palantir, 150.18. All right, that's it. That is it for me, folks. We got Hoodie at 102.88 and Palantir at 150.15. I will be back at 3:45. You guys are trying to be funny in the chat saying I'll see you at 3:47, 3:48. That's a good one. I haven't heard that joke before. We'll see you at 3:48. That's a good one. Implying that I will be late. That's a good one. You guys are getting more creative. We're being more original about the jokes. That's a good one. We do have earnings today. We have United, we have Discover Financial, and we have Kinder Morgan. So those are the 3 earnings we have after the bell. Earnings season is officially back, and we will have that after the bell today. Burnish is the word of the day. Burnish.
Burnish.
To polish and make shiny. A quick swipe of wax was used to burnish the wooden tabletop. Sir Cadwallader rose at dawn to burnish every piece of his armor before the tournament. Sir Cadwallader. What type of name is that, bro? Is that a real thing? Sir Cadwallader refers to John Cadwallader, a prominent figure in Philadelphia and a brigadier general in the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. Okay. I don't know who that person was, but that word was a bit harder than the actual word to pronounce. Burnish. That is the word of the day, to polish and make shiny. I mean, it looks like Trump, by saying Jay Powell is unlikely to be fired, highly unlikely, kind of burnished the market, made it a bit more shiny, took away some of that doubt that the street was pricing in, and maybe that's going to be enough to continue keeping this momentum. All right, that's it for me, folks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you all. We'll be back at 3:45 on the market close. Bye, everybody. See you in a bit.